It is a Wednesday edition of Running Points on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta sporting the Hawaiian gear. Mr. Anthony sporting, I should say, the very nice, mellow Syracuse gear.
I got Anthony in the front, Anthony in the back. So
all right. Anthony Square.
Anthony squared.
Anthony squared today. Speaking of squared, how square?
What a segue.
How square are the Big Ten and the Pac-12 conference right about now?
Especially the Pac-12, I get it because there's a lot of hot spots out west, and I think if you go to New Mexico, I know that New Mexico State's not in the Pac-12, but it's a team that a lot of Pac-12s might have as their one non-conference game. You have to quarantine 14 days before you even go in that state as it sits right now. So out west, there are a lot of hot spots and a lot of logistical reasons why the Pac-12 would struggle to have a season. You look at the Big Ten. None of those states are in a danger zone, I don't believe. And
I know Nebraska, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois really aren't.
No.
Michigan and Ohio, not. Pennsylvania, you can have an argument. Zone. Yeah, but you can have an argument. Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan are a little more affected than the other ones.
But they're still not on that list of states that you have to quarantine before you go into. So what they heard or were told between Wednesday and Saturday is beyond me, because they had a schedule out, they were ready to go, and then 4 days later they were done. They tapped out.
We bring this up because the big story, the Big 12 has announced or will announce they are a go for the 2020 college football season. Not only are they a go, they've already put a schedule together where week 1, which will be played September the 12th, will be a non-conference game. They'll start their conference schedule on September the 19th. It's a 10-game schedule, just like the ACC, just like the Southeastern Conference. Also announced the AAC and Conference USA have both said, we're in. So you now have 5 conferences, 3 Power 5 schools, 3 Power 5 conferences, 2 mid-major conferences that have said we are in for the fall. Now, does that guarantee that we're going to have college football? No, it doesn't. But much like Major League Baseball, they're going to give it a go, and we'll see how far they get through the process of playing football on Saturdays in the fall. The big thing is we're going to have college football, at least on paper, right now as we speak at 12:04 on Wednesday, August the 12th, less than a month away from college football season. We're going to have college football, and more importantly, and we'll get to Brian Driscoll when he calls in at 12:15, our Notre Dame guru, the NCAA Board of Transfer people are going to be meeting to determine, okay, what do we do with the Pac-12 and the Big Ten kids that want to play football? Do we let them transfer to these other schools and let them go without any penalty? And if you're the Big Ten and you're the Pac-12, do you renege on what you said yesterday and say, no, we change our mind, we're going to play football?
Can't do that. Can't put Pandora back in her box once you open it. So it'll be interesting, because then the other question, what do you do with the national championship? Is it a national championship between those 3 conferences? And then what's the spring football going to look like if the Big 12, Big 10, and the Pac-12 have it? But none of all the other conferences are done. They play in the fall. So Big 10 playing like a Mickey Mouse this conference only schedule for the spring, and then say we're done for the year because there's nothing really to play for.
That's a great question.
Those kids aren't going to play, I'm telling you. Justin Fields is done. All the people that can sniff the draft in the Big 12, Big 10 or the Pac-12, they're done. Which is a shame, because Justin Fields only had 1 year of college football.
Well, now here's the million-dollar question. If Justin Fields is given an opportunity to quarterback a college football team in 2020...
What if he went back to Georgia? Wouldn't that be a story?
I was
transfers out of Georgia and then he goes back to Georgia.
I was thinking he transfers to Notre Dame, kicks Ian Book to the curb, and leads Notre Dame to the national championship.
We'll talk to Brian. That's just not Notre Dame style.
No, it's not. But, I mean, okay, for the longest time, and DJ and I had this conversation, and for the longest time, and he brought this up, Notre Dame has always been known as, and one of the reasons why they are a hated school, is they do things the right way. The right way is they don't recruit dummies. And I just call it as I see it. They don't recruit kids that don't excel in the classroom. Right. They're only able to recruit kids that excel in the classroom, and that's their thing. Well, if Justin Fields is a solid student,
not like Cordell Jones that didn't come here to play no school.
Exactly. If he's a solid student who's getting it done academically, I see no reason why Notre Dame wouldn't want to have Justin Fields. Look, at the end of the day, it's one thing to sit back and say, okay, we're only recruiting smart kids in the classroom. That's fine. I got no problems with that. But if you're going to tell me, well, that's not Notre Dame's style to do something like that. Wait a second. They want to win a championship just as much as anyone else. And if this guy cuts it in the classroom and he's a better quarterback, and he obviously is a better quarterback than Ian Book, I'll take Justin Fields any day of the week and twice on Saturdays.
Yeah, well, I heard snippets of your conversation with DJ, and I do agree with the one. Ian Book chose Notre Dame. He went to
Absolutely,
Notre Dame.
he did.
He's putting the work in for Notre
Absolutely.
Dame. And now you're going to bring this kid that didn't choose Notre Dame at all, and it basically just a victim of circumstance, and bring him in and just put him on the squad.
I'll give you a quick story. 1989, Columbiana had all kinds of problems in their school district, and they couldn't have sports that particular year. That year, there were some really good athletes. The late Dave Weichert, Jimmy Batura, and John Sloan all came to Latonia.
So now Latonia is the Notre Dame of
Well, all I know is those three kids played and started on the football field, the basketball court, the baseball diamond. And coincidentally, the basketball team went to the district championship for the only time in school history, lost to Western Reserve. And the baseball team went to their one and only regional semifinal, lost to, they lost to a really small school that ultimately wound up going to the state semifinals that year. John Sloan pitched 8 innings, gave up an unearned run, and they lost 1-0.
All right, if Notre Dame rolls the dice, brings Justin Fields in, and he gets caught doing something, not saying he would, I don't know who he is or what his character, but let's just say...
Oh, Notre Dame looks stupid then.
Then all the we do things the right way out the window.
Absolutely.
Because if that happens, you threw character out the window to win national championship.
No question about that. And then they'd be just like any other college.
Right.
No, you have no argument from me. But, I mean, let's not separate, or please separate, the idea of I want to recruit the smarter kids academically with I don't want to win a national championship. You can have both.
I can deal with that plight because Georgia Tech can't recruit the dumb because
they're like Notre Dame. They have to recruit the smarter kids.
The academic requirements to get into Georgia Tech are ungodly.
Absolutely.
You have to get a 31 on your ACT, or you're not even going to be looked at.
Yeah, you could be a 4-point student at Notre Dame. You can have all the wonderful things on your side, but if you don't cut the mustard, you don't cut the mustard.
All that said, Georgia Tech has 4 national championships in football, so it can be done.
Absolutely.
You're not going to be a powerhouse or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you can do it. It just you have to do it in a very careful way.
Right.
And Notre Dame's been able to do it, but not lately. I mean, the last time they won a national championship, you weren't even born yet.
Nope.
1988 for those keeping score at home.
3 years before.
Yeah, so it's it can be done, but the big news in college football, and again, we've heard Major League Baseball, when baseball started, oh my God, this is going to get canceled really early. Or the National Football League, everyone's saying how fast the National Football League is going to die, or how the National Hockey League and the NBA aren't going to be able to survive. Look, maybe this is Buckeye hatred coming out because Ohio State's not in because their conference chose not to play football this year. But without the Big Ten and without the Pac-12, college football is a go as of right now. Now, this could change, but as of right now, college football is a go.
And what is the NCAA thinking right now? Because they're sitting back and watching all these conferences just go off and do their own thing. And the NCAA is like trying to
Yeah.
What do we do now?
Mark Emmerick is playing video games somewhere and is not allowed to appear anywhere to talk about this because
no uniformity in the NCAA.
Well, and here's the thing that bothers me most about this entire season of garbage, where the Time Life Man of the Year is Mayhem from the Allstate commercials. He's the man of the year, hands down. He's the man of the year, hands down. But here's the reason why 2020 has just been an absolute disaster. And college football and how they've handled it is the exact way how we as society, we as Americans, have handled this virus. No plan. Listening to the people that you want to listen to instead of the scientists, because we've politicized every friggin' thing regarding this virus. And now, just like in real life, in real life America, we don't have a handle on this. We aren't going to have a handle on this anytime soon because we've politicized this. We've now politicized this in college football to where the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are listening to a group of people saying, you can't do this. It's going to be a death knell if you do this. There could be catastrophes all over the place. Meanwhile, the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC are clearly listening to those who are saying completely opposite of what is being told by the Big 10 and the Pac-12. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess, just like our country right now is a mess over COVID because we have not had a uniformity plan to listen to the scientists. Instead, we have politicized it all.
The other thing that drives me nuts about college football is they don't have anyone making decisions that actually is intertwined with the programs.
Of course not.
So no one knows what the program, like what goes on in the program. So this is why they should have had someone that is involved in each school's program on a board or something, because they could say, hey, at practice, we do this. These are where protocols are needed. These are where protocols can be lax because we don't really have any contact at this part of practice, et cetera, et cetera. That might have made things a lot more clear, but now you have people that have no contact with the programs or what the inner workings of the programs are, making decisions about whether or not they should play.
And instead of having someone who knows something, instead Mark Emmerick, who plays video games, apparently.
I think he's playing Atari.
He's playing Atari in the world of help me out here. What's the big hot thing? PS4. Yeah. In the world of PS4, this clown is playing Atari. Yeah, that's that. Welcome to college football. We're going to take a time out. Brian Driscoll, our Notre Dame guru, is going to join us in a couple of minutes to break down the latest as to what is going to occur in the next month or so. Brian Tolnar, our PGA guy from Mill Creek, is going to be calling in at 1 o'clock. We're going to talk pucks with Tom Callahan at 2 o'clock. It's a busy, busy day on a Wednesday edition of Running Point. Back in a few. Stick around.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Let's get right to our top
More
story
experienced reporters
A new Wilmington restaurant. GM Lordstown.
telling more local stories
We'll look at efforts
boy
to
is
curb
recovering from a broken.
around our
Good
valley
Community in Niles,
We are
one
here in
Canyon Valley
Youngstown, right
business.
because you expect
important for everyone.
No place like home.
more local news.
In Mercer County
before
Court.
they become life-threatening.
21 News is our valley's #1 local news.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends: shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
Hello, I'm Greg Burbick with G. Burbick Farms. For the last 100 years, my family has farmed in Columbiana and Mahoning counties. I began raising cattle in 1996 with the goal of providing a better product for you and your family on the dinner table. Our grass-fed and grain-supplemented Black Angus beef are raised with no hormones, steroids, or antibiotics. We're known for our hometown-friendly service and incredible tasting products. We're locally owned and have customers across the tri-state area. Our products go from our farm to your family. Stop by our farm on New Buffalo Road or visit us on the web at gburbickfarms.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. G. Burbick Farms, it just tastes better.
Welcome back to a Wednesday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. We're running this man ragged, mainly because he's running himself ragged with all the news that has been breaking in the last 24 to 48 hours. He is our Notre Dame guru. He is Brian Driscoll, and he joins us on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. Brian, what's up, my brother?
Oh, what's up? So let's see. Big Ten canceled football, Pac-12 canceled football, and hopefully Notre Dame's going to play this year on the day that fall camp started, and it's not really a big topic of conversation.
No, not at all.
This makes it such a weird year.
Yeah, not at all. Hey, you know, in all sincerity, it seemed to me about an hour or so ago, all of the chips lied in the Big 12 conference, because it seemed to me the Big 12 conference was the conference that was going to determine whether or not we were going to have a college football season as of today. And when the Big 12 announced moments ago that they're in and that they have already put together a schedule that starts September 12th with a non-conference game, conference schedule starts September 19th, 10-game season. Now you have the Big 12 aligned with the ACC, aligned with the SEC, and you got two mid-major conferences, Conference USA and the AAC. Brian, it looks like, as of right now, even though the situation is fluid, as of right now, it looks like we're going to get college football.
Well, yeah, as you said, it's a very fluid situation. I think right now, those teams, and I wrote an article this morning at IrishBreakdown.com, quoting the doctor that's from Duke that's at the head of the ACC's committee. And the reality is people can look at the same data and come to different conclusions. But I think another thing that when you read through the Pac-12 situation, they're basing it based on what's going on in their states, and not every state is the same. And I think that's what's adding to this drama. But I do think there's a call to move forward. I do think there's an understanding that, these young people are not going to be at any greater risk by playing than by not playing. So we should play, because it's not just about the game. It's about the impact on these people's futures, coaches' lives, and all the towns that they're in. Most of these schools are not in towns that can really survive without college football, and that's just a reality. So I do think there's a push towards playing, and I'm glad that they're playing, and it's going to give us something to talk about and focus on besides all the other things we've been focusing on and talking about the last 3 months.
A lot of players and coaches have come out with the sentiment that these players are going to be more safe as part of a structured football program than they would be outside of it, left to their own devices. Do you kind of buy that, or do you think that's just kind of short selling them or the university or the safety protocols of the things outside of football, or do you actually think that these kids would be safer if they were in a structured football environment instead of off to their own devices?
100% agree with it. I'm someone who's a lot of times skeptical of the narrative, right? I mean, that's just my nature, and I'm skeptical when I hear coaches say things, because coaches have, a vested interest in spinning things a certain way. I 100% believe this. I mean, having been a college football coach, when we're in football season, we can control most of their time. If they choose to go out late at night and party, they're going to do that anyway. But we can control where they are, who they're around, what they're putting in their bodies, all those type of things. And I think these schools have done a really good job of putting in place protocols that allow them to test and know who's doing what. And then when, kids do get sick, which is the thing, or not even get sick, but just test positive for COVID-19, there's a way for them to trace where they're going. And if you take that structure away, then why, then you can't control that. And they're going to just be out in the population, around students. They're going to be, more incentive to go out at night. I talked to a source the other day who's very close with some of the leaders at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame got about 3 or 4 days off before the start of fall camp, and there was a very clear instruction from the leadership to the team: if I find out that you're going out and doing all this, you might as well consider yourself off for the season, because they have something to play for. They have something that's causing them and making them make choices to do the right thing. And you take that away, and what are they going to do as 18, 19, and 20-year-olds?
All right, there's a lot of tentacles surrounded by the decision by the Big 12 today, the biggest of which is, what are we going to do with the kids from the Pac-12 and the Big 10 who want to play football this year, But because of transfer rules, where you would normally have to sit out a year, you probably wouldn't be able to do that. Now, we've been told that the board of directors in that department are going to get together and say, hey, it's time for us to lift the one-year ban, and any of these kids from the Pac-12 or the Big Ten, because their mind was made up yesterday, and there's no turning back unless they decide to look back at them and say, hey, you want to rethink this? You want to revote on this? I don't think that's going to happen. So assuming that it doesn't, Brian, what do we do with these kids from the Pac-12 and the Big Ten that want to play football this year? Do we open the floodgates and let those players go anywhere they choose?
You know, I think that there's really a threefold aspect to this from an NCAA standpoint. Number one is, do you grant immediate eligibility or not? If the NCAA wants to prevent mass exit from those two leagues, they won't grant immediate eligibility unless a player is someone who has graduated, maybe a fifth-year senior who would then be able to go transfer anyway. So that they could make that decision, or they could say to these young people, hey, you have an opportunity to go play somewhere else, go play somewhere else. That leads into the second issue. A lot of teams like Notre Dame, for example, are sitting there at 85 scholarships. We're very close to 85 scholarships. Well, there's now 4 leagues now that have some talented players, more some than others, that could go somewhere else. Well, there's almost as many teams that aren't playing now that are playing. So do you expand rosters? Do you give teams 5 extra slots? And you could even say, hey, we'll give you 5 extra slots, but you can only count towards the senior. Someone who's going to be gone the next year, something along those lines. So you could say, hey, it's only for 1 year. So if that kid comes back in 2021, he's going to count towards, your 85 the following year. And then the third aspect of this is, what do you do for the kids that stay? Do you give them incentive to say, hey, listen, you stay at the school you're at, you don't lose a year of eligibility. Even if you play in the spring or something along those lines, you won't lose a year of eligibility. Do they create any kind of incentivization for them to stay? Because this is going to get to be a very, very tricky situation. And like a guy like Justin Fields, you say, well, he could wait till the spring. During the spring, he's going to be preparing for the NFL draft. Let's be honest about that. So you're going to give him another chance to play football, or does he have to rest on his 1 year at Ohio State? So it's a tough situation, and it needs strong leadership and decisiveness. And my fear is, Ron, that's not two things we often see from the NCAA.
Well, you got that right. And the other thing that right off the top of my head is the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, they want to play spring football. All right, the natural question, who the hell is the national champion when it's all said and done?
Right. I mean, I think that if they decide to play in the spring, they're not going to be a part of that process. You go play your little 8, 9, 10 game season, but you're not going to be part of college football championship, would be what I would say. Partly because there's just no reason to make this decision now. A lot of these teams still don't play Notre Dame still is over a month away from their first game, right? So, I mean, they're a month away now because it takes the 12th. The SEC is a month and a half away from their first game. They don't start till September 26th. There was just no reason to make this decision now, especially since 5 days ago you came out with a schedule. So a lot of this just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. A lot of this seems like, there's more to it than just, safety for players. And the next question for me is, Ron, is how do these leagues that are continuing forward, how do they handle that first spike in cases on campus that's going to happen as students come back to school from across the country?
We've seen baseball deal with the positive test by just having an expanded roster and next guy up kind of mentality. It's harder to do that in football and stay competitive. Do you think there's a tighter worry on competitive integrity if COVID-19 becomes a breakout kind of thing in a team, or do you think the football's going to have the same mentality where it's just the next guy up?
Well, I think, look, you have 22 starters and 85 players on scholarship. Right, I don't think that there's a competitive disadvantage. I don't think that, it's no different than if there's an injury. Teams go through some years where they have devastating injuries. I remember 2015, Notre Dame lost their starting quarterback, the starting running back, the starting nose tackle, the starting nickel corner, and their starting tight end before the second game of the season was over with. Well, they still went 10-3 and went to the Fiesta Bowl, right? So That's part of football. You recruit depth to your football team. Now, if you're talking about 20, 30, 40 players being out, then you're not playing that weekend. You're just there because you don't know who has it, the incubation period, all this other stuff. You're just not going to play that weekend, so you're just going to have to forfeit. That's part of life. I would rather have to play 9 games and have to maybe forfeit one than not play any games, because the problems that are going to come about from trying to play in the spring are going to be far greater, in my opinion, than trying to play in the fall. Number one, there's guarantee you're going to be able to play in the spring, because what's going to be different then that's different now? You're going to start the season right in the middle of flu season. That's basically when they're going to be going through fall camp, is the harshest period of flu season. So there's just so many question marks, and then you're going to lose a lot of players to the NFL. There's just going to be so much that makes playing in the spring incredibly difficult. And then what do you do to 2020, 2021 season? You're telling me these kids are going to finish their season in May or June and then take a month or two off and then be right out of fall camp? That seems safe to anyone? That's going to create far more problems for people's futures than what we've seen from COVID-19 in that age group. Now, different age groups, devastating virus. But for this age group that we're talking about, it's not.
Brian Driscoll is our guest on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. He is the publisher at Irish Breakdown. You can read his work. Go to irishbreakdown.com, IRISHBREAKDOWN.com. My Leetonia education knows no boundaries. Brian, a couple of other things. In the words of Jim Mora, playoffs? How do we determine this? You and I had an interesting conversation on my drive in to the YSN studios. I mean, for this year, you have the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. You also have 2 very powerful mid-major conferences that are becoming more powerful by the moment, I might add, in Conference USA and the AAC. Do we go 4-team playoff, or do these guys get creative and say, okay, because we have 5 conferences that are playing as of right now, we'll have the winner from each conference and 1 wild card, and let's do a 16 playoff?
I think they would. If it was up to me, I'd stick with the 14 playoff. I mean, let's be honest about a couple things, right? Most of the playoff bids since this whole thing started have been occupied by the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, and Notre Dame. Right? The Big Ten has had Ohio State, who's been in it 3 times, right? But outside of that, the other 2 Big Ten teams that made the playoff didn't score a point. Now, Notre Dame only scored 3, so I'm not trying to take too much of a jab, right? The Pac-12 had a team in 14, and they haven't had 1 team since, I think, Washington in 2016, right? So if I were to tell you before the year, hey, an ACC team, 2 SEC teams, and either Notre Dame or Ohio State in the playoffs, or Oklahoma, you probably would have said, oh, okay, I could see that, right? So have the playoff, have the 14 playoff. We don't need to bring the AAC into the playoff because they're not going to win it anyway, and you're going to basically be a bye for some teams. So just stick with the 14 playoff. Or, if the Big 12 ends up bowing out at the last minute and the ACC and SEC go forward, just have the winner of those 2 teams play in a championship game, something like that. So I would just stick with the 14 playoff in a very limited bowl season is what I would do. Or just get rid of the bowl season and just play for the championship.
As we go into 2021, assuming that COVID is kicked to the curb and we have a normal, if there is such a word anymore, some sense of normalcy, you brought up something really interesting. Keep it at 4 teams, but let the bowl games determine who goes to the playoffs. Explain this, Brian.
Yeah, so my fear is that if you expand the playoff, which is going to happen because the NCAA and these presidents care about money, and an expanded playoff to them equals more money, but you cheapen, to me, the regular season, and you cheapen the bowl system even more. I believe there's a system where you can expand the teams with a chance to play for a championship while not only preserving the regular season, but getting it back to its old form, and then also strengthening the bowls again. I grew up, Ron, in an era in Ohio where I remember the Ohio State-Michigan game, and the end of that game, whoever won, they had roses on the field and roses in their mouth because that's what they were playing for. It was the Rose Bowl. Now, sometimes if you're Ohio State, getting to the Rose Bowl is a disappointment because it means you're not playing for the championship. So go back to the old bowl system. You win your league, you're locked into what bowl. And then after the bowl system, then pick your sport. You've added 1 game, which you're going to add anyway if you go to 8 teams. Now, you go into that bowl season, there's legitimately 6 or 7 teams a year that have a chance to get into the playoff with a win, and there's potentially 2 or 3 other teams who can't get in the playoff, but they can have a say by maybe knocking someone out. think about the TV ratings that would drive. If Ohio State's number 5, the 4 teams ahead of them, you don't think Ohio State fans are going to be locked into their TVs if they play like on the second or third day of the January, the New Year bowl system? You don't think they're going to be locked into that Notre Dame Clemson game, Cotton Bowl? You don't think they're going to be locked into the Sugar Bowl, hoping that one of those teams loses so they can get in? That's going to drive up ratings, which then now allows you to make more money in those bowls. It makes the regular season more important, because I don't want to see a situation where a bunch of 2-loss teams get into the playoff because they happen to win their league. Remember when UConn got an automatic bid to the Orange Bowl years ago with 4 losses? Do we really want that? I don't. Let the 4 best teams play for a championship. Just give them one more data point to earn that.
And then obviously the other big talk is how all this kind of affects the draft. Do you think players that are on maybe the fringe of a draft pick, do you think they'll be the ones that are most likely to transfer, if transfers are available, to a team that is playing in the fall and say, I need to get more data points, I need to put more of myself on film? Or do you think it'll be the guys like the Justin Fields that just have had 1 year in the college football and think that they need another year just to develop themselves? They're already a lock to the draft, but they just need another year. Which transfers do you think will be more prevalent?
I think it's going to be veteran players more often than not. I think you'll see some younger guys who maybe regret the decision they made, that look at this as their window to go somewhere else. You're going to have some kids being recruited behind the scenes illegally by college programs to transfer. You see some of that, but I think most of this is, hey, these kids that need an opportunity to go play for the NFL, to go showcase themselves to the NFL. I mean, Justin Fields, he's expected to be a high pick, but with a big season, he could be the number 1 pick. Well, there's a big difference in money between number 1 and number 12. Right? I mean, pretty big difference. And I also think he needs to improve his game and those kind of things. So I think he's someone who should consider it. There's a lot of players at Ohio State that are going into their year where they could go from being a 3rd-round pick to a 1st-round pick. I mean, after 2017, did anyone think Drew Tranquill was going to be a 4th-round pick? No. He needed that 5th year to jump up. Going into last year, did anybody think Joe Burrow had a chance to be the number 1 overall pick? He was just hoping to be drafted. Right, so I think a lot of those type of kids are going to be the ones to leave. The guys that are already kind of locked for the 1st round, for the most part, are just going to do what we've already seen: opt out and not play. You've already seen about 30 of those guys already do that, and I think what some of those highly ranked guys like in those leagues would end up doing. But some of them are going to need to showcase, and some of them need the experience.
All right, Brian, we had a conversation the first couple minutes of the show, Anthony and I had a conversation with my boss prior to going on the air, and a couple of folks were saying that Notre Dame would never do this because it's not their style to do this. I'll pose this question to you. Not that I believe that this would happen. I don't believe that it would happen, but I'll pose this question anyway. If Notre Dame were to look at Ohio State's quarterback and say, okay, he cuts it academically, we're going to bring him in, and he's going to unseat Ian Book, and he's going to lead Notre Dame to a national championship. Is there a way, or would Notre Dame even consider doing something like that?
So I have not been the most pro Ian Book guy in the media. Right?
You and me both.
I would not do that, because to me that sends a terrible signal to your team, and I think that's the kind of thing that could fracture a locker room. There's going to be some guys on board because they want to win a championship, but there's going to be a lot of guys that said, hey, you know what, like, this guy didn't lead with us, this guy didn't sweat with us, this guy didn't invest in us, and you're just going to have him walk in and you're just going to hand the job over. If you can do that to Ian Book, you can do that to anybody, and that's how you lose your team. And I think that camaraderie with Ian Book is going to make you a stronger team than no camaraderie with Justin Fields. And it's nothing against Justin Fields. It's just this late in the process. If this would have happened back in March, maybe a different story. But you've already started fall camp. I don't see a scenario in which they would do that, because you'd have to promise Justin Fields a starting job. And I just don't think that makes them – it makes them maybe more talented team, but not a better team. So I personally would not do that.
Okay, so having said that, Notre Dame, obviously, if the transfer doors open and people are allowed to go anywhere they want to for this year and this year alone, where would Notre Dame try to improve their program?
Well, right now, Notre Dame is at the 85 scholarship limit, so unless the NCAA makes a decision to extend that number by a few, they'd be in trouble. I think areas where you might see Notre Dame look to improve is Cornerback is still a question mark. Even with Nick McLeod, that's still a question mark. So Notre Dame had a commitment from Paulson Adebo, the All-American corner from Stanford. If he plays for Notre Dame, I would certainly look at it, because the difference between there and quarterback is you can play 4 corners. You're not going to rotate Ian Book and Justin Fields, right? I think that's an area we can look at it. Running back, the big question mark at running back. There's no proven player. There's nobody that's really stepped up and differentiated themselves from the others. I think that would be a position you could look at. And then I think big guys. I think defensive tackle and potentially a linebacker are in areas where, there are holes to be filled where you could step a guy in and allow him to compete. Because at those positions, they'd have to come in and compete. At quarterback, the only way you're getting a guy like Justin Fields is if you promise him a spot. Now, I would still look at quarterback, but it would be more of a guy that wants to kind of come in and get his degree and be a backup or something like that, which I don't think you'd see something like that happen right now.
You and I are a big fan of the player that I'm about to throw down that would fit perfectly at Notre Dame, assuming he is academically up to snuff to Notre Dame standards, and that would be Master Teague.
No. I would bend over backwards to get Master Teague to Notre Dame. And I don't even care if he carries the ball once this year. I'll tell you what, you talk about wanting leadership, you talk about character, you talk about Notre Dame fit. What I've seen from that young man going all the way back to the protests that happened in May till now, just a tremendous young person. So, yeah, if there was a way to get that kid at Notre Dame, I would certainly do that. And he's a football player too, but that's the kind of kid you want to say, hey, you know that expression about, the first guy off the bus when it comes to, like, the big physical guy? That's the first kid you wanted a microphone talking about your program. Just a top-notch, first-class young man.
When we talked about the Pac-12, there are a couple of states out west that are hot spots that might have been a reason why they kind of got scared and canceled the season. Well, the ACC and the SEC, too, they both have several schools that are in quote-unquote hot spot states. You got Georgia Tech and Atlanta, Miami, and then Florida State and Florida, and then the SEC's got a couple of schools down there, too. Does that worry you at all that those schools are in quote-unquote hot spots and in those conferences, or do you think that's okay?
It doesn't me, because I look at the data. I think hotspots is something that has been politically designed in the media to create problems. The reality is this is a disease that we need to be able to have a legitimate, honest conversation about. And just because someone has it doesn't mean they're at risk of anything beyond just they happen to test positive, right? So if you look at the numbers, to dive into the number of people that are sick, they talk about hospitalizations, and hospitalizations went way up in places like Florida and Texas. Well, a big reason for that is because we had a 3-month lockdown, which meant you couldn't go in for normal medical procedures. So when that was lifted, now all of a sudden everybody's flooding into the hospital. Well, now that a lot of those people have had their situations taken care of, you're now seeing that decrease. So we've changed the narrative, right? At first it was let's flatten the curve for the hospitals, right? Then it became all about the death count, and now it's about just cases. And I feel like that's a disingenuous conversation. If you're in a place that there's a hot spot, then maybe you take extra precautions. You tell your players, stay out, stay away, do those kind of things. But on this campus, it's like its own little city. So, no, I don't have a problem with them doing that, because those are also states that still have relatively modest to lower level death rates when it comes to this virus, especially, and again, this is the big thing, especially in the age group that we're talking about. The data doesn't lie about that.
Brian, before we let you go, and you've worked overtime, Lord knows we've had you on more than a handful of times. Normally, we don't have you on at all in the summertime, and we just get you on a week or two before the season starts. Speaking of the season, as of right now, August the 12th at 12:40 Eastern Daylight Time, Brian Driscoll, give me a percentage on how you believe we're going to have college football. What is the percent chance of a full college football season as of right now?
Well, I was on a radio show last night, Ron, and I was asked about that. I said I'm not optimistic. I would have probably given it about a 25% chance, because at the time there was rumblings that the Big 12 was going to cancel. Now that the Big 12 said, hey, we're on board, we have a plan, I'm up to 60%. I'm still cautiously optimistic, but I'm still not locked in like, yes, we're going to play football. I still think my big thing is that final hurdle is going to be what kind of leadership and courage do people show when the media starts talking about that first, outbreak on campus? Do they lock things down? How are they going to handle that How are they going to maneuver that? That's going to be that final hurdle, because that's going to happen on some campuses as you bring everybody back, especially places like Notre Dame where there's students from all over the world coming to your campus. So if they get through that hurdle, which should be around mid to late August, then I'll say, hey, let's strap them up and let's get ready to play ball.
Wouldn't it be nice if we had leadership in the NCAA and not a guy that's playing Atari in a PS4 world?
Well, you know, I still say at the end of the day, the NCAA is designed to work for the schools. So at the end of the day, if we had leadership at the institutions, then we would be in a much better position when it comes to college athletics. We don't have that. The NCAA gets all the blame, understandably so, because the NCAA to me is really just it's time for it to be done. But, you know, we have a colossal lack of leadership in every part of our society right now, which is why I'm encouraged by what we're seeing in the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12, that there are some people doing what right now is not considered the right thing to do by a lot of people in the media, a lot of people writing about this. So, you know, it gives me a little bit of hope and a little bit of optimism that there are still some people out there that are willing to do what I believe is the right thing to do, despite the fact there's a lot of pushback against it.
Hey, take a few weeks off. We'll talk Notre Dame football in a bit, okay?
That'll be when I retire, but thanks anyway.
All right. Appreciate it, brother.
Thanks for having me on.
You got it, man. Brian Driscoll, he does an outstanding job. You may want to check out his work. Even if you're not a Notre Dame fan, check out his work. He breaks down Notre Dame like nobody's business. IrishBreakdown.com, IrishBreakdown, IrishBreakdown.com.
Yeah, he does a great job, and he does a great job. He's very well spoken. He's very, he's got his opinions there, and I love listening to him as a guest. One of these times, though, I'm going to let him know that Rudy was offsides as a Georgia Tech fan, because let's all, he was offsides.
Oh, that was a quick first step by Rudy. By the way, and this might come as a surprise to people that I'm a huge Notre Dame fan. I hated that movie. Absolutely hated that movie, mainly because the real-life Rudy's a complete a-hole. So maybe that's one of the reasons why I didn't like the movie. Even though, who's the kid that played it?
I just know Sam Wise. Oh, yeah, Sean Astin.
Sean Astin, who played Rudy, was phenomenal. I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal in that movie.
He was good in The Goonies. He was good in Lord of the Rings. So, yeah, he's always been pretty good.
Okay, so is Goonies the quintessential 80s movie in your mind?
Quintessential? No. And when I think of 80s, I think of like Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, E.T.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Goonies is up there, but not quintessential.
Goonies is definitely top 10-ish.
Yeah.
But to me, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah, Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club is up there. 16 Candles was a sneaky good movie.
Yeah. So anything by Spielberg is always good.
So yeah.
E.T.
Pretty much.
Indiana Jones.
Pretty much. All right, let's get to the phone lines at 330-886-0813, the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. Let's go to Tony. Tony, what's going on, my brother?
Hey, Ron and Anthony, how are you guys today?
Good.
Good. Hey, Ron, I want to compliment you on something. It's for years of having conversations with you. I love it, and I won't go too deep into it because I know it's not a political show. I love your global perspective. As much as you're passionate about sports, you put it in a reasonable perspective, in a reasonable context when you talk about these issues, and I appreciate that.
Pretty good coming from an unreasonable guy.
Oh, I'll call you unreasonable again. Don't worry about it.
Hey, just ask my parents. They'll tell you how unreasonable I can be. Trust me.
Hey, I want to throw something out, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, and I don't want to get too deep into it. But as I was listening to the conferences fall, or Avira, they're going to come back and play. My perspective on it was the ones that are continuing to play are the rebel flag conferences, and read into that what you want. But other than the Syracuse, Pitt, BC. These are rebel flag conferences. These are people who stick whatever in the draw a line in the sand, and they're not going to give up on their belief, whether it's based in science or not.
Okay, you bring up an interesting point. Now, let's twist this historical reference. Rebel were the folks that dumped tea into the Boston Harbor, known passionately in this country as the Boston Tea Party. You can certainly put those patriots amongst the rebels. You could also say the Confederate soldiers during the Civil War were considered to be rebels. So it's a double-edged sword in the meaning. I don't now. I got to be honest, Tony. And
but
one
the
of
the tea that got dumped into the harbor wasn't based on, a moral issue. Well, I guess it was a moral issue.
Sure, it was. Absolutely, it was.
It was.
It was. I mean, it depends on what side of history that you want to be in, and this is my biggest problem with COVID and the COVID world that we're living in. We don't know which side of history is the good side because we politicize the whole damn thing. So
that's the point I wanted to allude to, and let me throw this out, and I will speak to a little bit of science here. The human papilloma virus. Now, years ago, not too many years ago, they came out with a vaccine for that. And they threw it out there and they said, parents, 12 years old, 13-year-olds, give this to your kids because later in life, if they have sex and they contract this thing later in life, this virus will come back and visit you with uterine cancer, bladder cancers, kidney cancers. Later in life, the virus would come back. You wouldn't detect it now. It would seem irrelevant right now. And a certain group of people, my kid's never going to have sex people, were so up in arms that the government came out and endorsed this vaccine. And that's what my point is. We don't know what we're dealing with in this virus. Hey, we all had chickenpox or got vaccinated for chickenpox when we were little, right? But son of a gun, if we don't have to face shingles later in life, we don't know the potential of this virus coming back, and we're potentially making Tuskegee Airmen out of these young men that we want to see them perform.
That's an interesting thought. Now, by the way, the chickenpox shingles conversation, I'm one that's had both. I had shingles in 2002 when I was living in Florida. Thankfully, it didn't.
That's early. That was early for you, my friend.
And it didn't last that long. Thankfully, mine was gone within a week, but it sucked. I can tell you that. But your point is well taken. It's just because we have politicized this, we are now the laughing stock across the world in terms of. Americans aren't welcome anywhere except for a few third world countries and one country below us in Mexico that's dying to have tourism, and they don't care if these people coming into their country may or may not have COVID. They just want the money. It bothers me that we've politicized this and we've turned science into politics to the point, and this is the perfect example. The Pac-12 and the Big Ten are obviously listening to a completely different version of science than the ACC, the Big 12, and the SEC.
The rebel conferences.
Well, I don't know which one is a rebel conference. I mean, are the ones that are saying, we're bowing out because we're right? Are they the rebels, or are the ones that are playing the rebels? I have no idea.
My friend, I'm speaking about the rebel flags, and I could see a rebel flag flying in Alabama, Florida, a lot of places. I don't see it flying at Ohio States and Michigans and Wisconsin.
Well, it used to fly in the Crestview School District until they played a playoff game in Cleveland against I don't want to say an inner city team, but a suburban team that had a lot of African American kids, and that stopped immediately.
Well, that's good. Somebody was had their eyes. The scales fell from their eyes. That's pretty good.
Exactly. What else is on your mind,
Can I
brother?
make one more point? And one of the things you used to do in your old show, and again, I don't get to listen that often. I happen to have a string here that I was able to listen to. But I want to throw something out. We always, with great reverence, speak of football coaches, basketball coaches, and you always did the Mount Rushmore of those sports. If you ever run short of topics and you want, let's not forget the other sports, the new sports like the soccer. There's some great coaches out there.
No doubt.
And I just happened to run into my high school coach who still they keep dragging him back in to coach at Howland. Jack Tomney, who is, in my opinion, he's on that Mount Rushmore for local coaches.
Howland is probably the best soccer program in the area when you're talking about boys soccer.
Jack Tomney's track, but
yeah, but when you're talking about soccer, I thought we went off on a tangent. Howland has probably one of the better soccer programs in the area. Consistently, a very good team.
Well, they were at state championship last year. That's a feather in their cap. The closest thing we've ever come to a state championship at Howland. So, Jack Tomney. Real quick, and I'll get off. But Jack Tomney resurrected the program at Howland. This is a program that had Willie Davenport in it in the early '60s. So, and it wasn't until the late 70s and 80s that he resurrected that program and did a beautiful job at that. I mean, he was blessed to have 500 kids per class at that time to pull from, but then he also did good work with that. So he's just one. There's many. There's Tony Boutars. There's Mike Garcia's. And I happen to have coached with all these guys. So these are great guys.
Tony, when the show goes to 5 days a week, and we're efforting on that, and I guess it's going to depend on high school football. If we have high school football, there's a better than average chance we go to 5 days a week. But if in fact we do go to 5 days a week, you can pretty much bank on the Mount Rushmore conversation, not just in high school football and high school basketball, but in the ancillary sports as well, like soccer, golf, volleyball. Softball, and Anthony's a huge softball fan, so he'll definitely speak to to that topic as well. But no, I mean, it's obviously if we go to 5 days a week, we will certainly have those conversations.
Oh, what a great coach champion out there. I was blessed. The first time I got to shake your hand, we were my niece, who was a freshman, lettered as a freshman at Hoban, and they were in the state championship game. And down in Akron, and what a great sport! What a great thing it's done for my niece, who lost her senior year last year. But what a great sport for these young girls.
Well, Cheryl Weaver is the absolute best softball coach in the area, and I would argue that if you're going to put a Mount Rushmore of high school coaches in any sport, Cheryl Weaver is on that mountain because of all the state championships that she has led champion to.
Yeah, well, perfect. Hey, I'll let you guys go, but I enjoyed the conversation. And you know what? If we can all step back and just say, you know what? Are we doing the right thing by these young athletes? And they are young athletes. They're going to do what they're told to do. They've got too much riding on it right now. Let's not force them in untenable positions.
All right, brother. Appreciate the call.
See ya.
See ya. I got to be honest. I don't know who's the rebel here.
That's the question right there. I mean, his last statement was the question that we're on: is it safer to be in a structured football program, or is it not safer? And that's where these people have kind of gone on different sides of the coin, because obviously the Big Ten and the Pac-12 think that the players are safer if they're not playing football. ACC, SEC, Big 12 think they're safer in a structured football environment where they're not off to their own devices. So the answer to that question is so different, and it's so left to be objective.
Well, and here's the other thing. As long as you don't have D-bags like Mike Clevenger and Zach Plesac, who decide to go out, and Clevenger in particular, who not only throws Plesac under the bus, but he flies home, and thus by flying home, it takes a very small chance at infecting the entire party, including a cancer survivor. I mean, as long as you don't have a-holes like that on your team, and everyone understands that in order for this to work, you are going to have to mind your P's and Q's, okay, then this can be attainable. I just don't know if history is going to look at the Southeastern Conference, the Big 12, and the ACC in the right perspective. I guess it depends on if we actually have a college football season and it's not a complete disaster, they will be looked upon as, hey, they did the right thing in the Big Ten and the Pac-12. Boy, they crapped on themselves. But if this turns around and it becomes a catastrophe where, God forbid, we actually lose a couple athletes to COVID-19, then obviously it's going to be looking good for the Big Ten and the Pac-12, albeit in a way in which we don't ever want things to happen. You don't want loss of life. And I don't know which group, to use Tony's term, are the rebels in this. Now, you use rebel in terms of the Confederacy, in terms of flying that god-awful racist flag, which race has nothing to do with this, but a god-awful flag. Yeah, the rebels are those that are in the South. It's the Confederacy. But in this perspective, I don't know who the rebels are in this, because I don't know how this story is going to end.
I think the people are playing are technically the rebels, because the status quo right now is not to play. And,
of course.
So I think that right now the ACC, SEC, and Big 12, I would categorize them as the people that are going out and doing the not status quo.
Okay, now, but are they going to be treated as the rebels during the Civil War? Or are they going to be treated as the rebels of the Boston Tea Party? That's how we're going to figure this one out.
Right.
And if they're considered to be the rebels via the Boston Tea Party, they're going to be in a much higher standing.
Right.
And
they'll be our Paul Revere's of the world.
Absolutely. The Paul Revere's of college football.
If not, they'll be our Robert E. Lees. No one has Lee logs. They have Lincoln logs. No one buys Lee logs.
Anthony Hardwig with the historical quote of the day. No one has Lee logs. They only have Lincoln logs. We'll take a timeout. On the other end, we'll talk golf. Nobody has a log in the game of golf. Brian Tolnar from Mill Creek coming up next. Stick around.
The details. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is one fine ride. Perfect cornering, superb handling, sporty and stylish, power to spare, plus awesome mileage. Yeah, jaw-droppingly beautiful lines and well appointed with luxurious trim. Put more oomph in your life and start beholding the molding. Find your home's fine hardwood at BairdBrothers.com. Storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air.
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
Online.
All right, let's talk high-risk futurecast and the timing of this weather.
On social media and on our app.
Today in the showers, I'm keeping my eye on in parts of Columbiana County.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
Hi everyone, this is DJ Yoakley with Your Sports Network. We appreciate your support of YSN and welcome you to the YSN family. Our broadcast streams are brought to you live at no cost to you by sponsors that are local to this community. Without the vision and generosity of our sponsors and partners, we would not be able to bring this game to you today. So please support the great businesses and leaders that are making this game possible. And if you're a business in need of great advertising and sponsorship opportunities, feel free to head over to our site for more information on the right fit for you. We are local, we are loyal, and we are live. We are YSN.
It's a Wednesday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com, and it is a little after 1 o'clock. It's time to bring in our golf guru from Mill Creek. He is the one and only Brian Tolnar, and he joins us on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. Brian, how are you today, sir?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing well. So we have the first major come and gone. Congratulations to Mr. Morin Kawa, who wins the PGA Championship. And man, that was a fun weekend of golf. A who's who in the field, and as it turns out, we get a first time winner on a major.
We do. I'll tell you what. If you like the leaderboard filled with some big names, you got it definitely Saturday and coming down the stretch on Sunday, and then Colin Morikawa. What a finish at 23 years old. Picks up his first major, and he's had a pretty good career, short-term career after just coming out of collegiate golf. A couple months prior to that. So I mean, what a big time win for Colin. There's no doubt about it.
All right. Now, when someone wins for the first time, this must be habitual in the sports media. Everyone looks at the kid, and then they automatically determine, okay, this kid's going to win a bunch more titles. Much like, and then this will certainly raise the eyebrows of my partner, who is a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan, Anthony Hardwig. When the big quarterback wound up winning the Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs this year, everyone is looking at this guy and saying, well, he's going to win at least 3 or 4 more Super Bowls. Look, can we just please enjoy the fact that this young man won a major and celebrate the fact that he won a major against a ridiculously talented field in a ridiculously tight final round of the PGA Championship, and let's not assume or predict how far this guy is going to go in terms of the majors, because what we saw Saturday and Sunday was golf at its absolute finest.
Oh, absolutely. If you're a fan of golf, you have to love what happened at the year's first major. There's no doubt about it. As for Colin, I mean, obviously the bar is set very high with what he just accomplished this past weekend with winning a major, winning a PGA Tour event. It's going to come down to how is he going to handle himself going forward, dealing with now the media obligations. Now you get in the Grand Slam of golf. Now you're into these events for a locked-in period of time. PGA Championship, he's in for a lifetime of playing in this major. I mean, he'll get into the British Open, the U.S. Open. He'll get into the Masters for the next 5 years. There's a lot of pressure when you raise the bar a little bit, and especially when you win a major. And obviously, being your first win as a major is certainly a stepping stone. But, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of media obligations. There's a lot of sponsor obligations that now are going to come your way. How do you balance and how do you handle those to still be able to put the time and the effort in to continue to get better and continue to win year in and year out on the PGA Tour? Now, the benefit of winning a major is you've got all those exemptions for a lengthy period of time, where a normal PGA Tour win, you've got basically 2 years to make enough money on the money list to get in the FedEx Cup events, the World Golf events, and so on down the line, and keep your card at the end of the year. So this buys him a little bit more time, but it's how he's going to react pretty much from this point on. I'm the PGA champion going into the next couple events, because the media will be on him week in and week out all the way through the year's last major. In this case, being the Masters and later on in the year in like November. So, that's the bar he's got to walk a fine line, making sure that he does what he has to do to continue to be a good player and play at the high level that he's playing at right now. And don't get caught up in the minutia of sponsor obligations and media stuff, from here on and out.
Right. From a Mill Creek perspective, high school golf started last week. We have our first kind of results in. How has that gone from Mill Creek, and have there been any teams or players that have kind of caught your eye? I don't know if you've been able to peek in on any of the high school golf that's gone on the last week, but how excited are you that we kind of finally have some high school results in?
It's nice just to have some high school athletics, period, albeit golf, because it's considered a safe sport outdoors and so on and so forth. Our teams have just started playing. They probably have a match or two under their belt, the play here at Mill Creek. Nothing has been posted that's been outrageously under par or anything like that up to this point, but it's still early on. And I'd say about a week or two after everybody gets their footing, half your lineups have just not played in high school matches, so they're just getting acclimated and adapted to what it takes to play for a team as opposed to all the individual stuff that they've played in as a kid. Seniors are hunkering down and, try to get some looks by, some of the area colleges and so on down the line, because they're trying to get on somebody's radar. So I think after about a week or a week and a half into the season, you're going to start seeing the players that play well consistently continue to rise and continue to get better, and that's where we start looking for, who's playing well and what's going on in our local area. This year is going to be a little bit different. from their perspective with all the safety regulations and stuff. So I mean, you're doing a lot of different protocols as a player and as a high school team, and what's expected of the coach, the players, and so on down the line. So there's a little bit more learning curve this year than I would say in most years, but after about a week and a half or 2 weeks into the season, it'll be like old hat for these kids and making sure that they're safe and they're playing their best and getting those looks for some of the area collegiate teams.
Brian, before we get into the next event, which will be the Wyndham Championship, I want to bring up something that you just touched on, and that's the recruiting aspect of a high school golfer. For so long we've sat back and, the major sports in high school, the football, the basketball, and baseball, you'll see college scouts, whether they're in the stadiums watching the football players or they're just getting film from these student athletes. How do you go about getting recruited on the college level? Do you see college golf coaches or someone within the college going to some high school matches and watching these kids and specifically watching a player that they may be interested in? How does that process work, Brian?
Well, the process in golf is a little bit different. Like the football games, you would go to the game. Basketball games, you would go to the game. Here, based on some of the NCAA regulations, they're limited on what they can do during season. So the majority of their time looking around and scouting folks is going to be in the summer when they're playing their junior competitions. They will get some time at like sectionals and districts and the state tournament, but most of the time it's during the summer months. Like the AJGA event that we host normally in June, we would have probably 30 or 40 coaches at the highest levels here. We had, I want to say, 12 of the 14 Big Ten schools when Maxwell Moldovan, who just accepted an offer at Ohio State, he's got one more year of school left, was playing here and won our tournament. So they were really tracking him. Illinois and UCLA was here, Texas was here, Stanford was here. So you're going to get your biggest looks during their off seasons because they traditionally would play fall golf as well. They would play spring golf at the collegiate level. So they're limited on how much time they can interact with the kids on certain times. Usually districts is when their season's over. Sectionals of the state tournament in October, November, late October is going to be where they get their most looks after the season's over. But the majority of the time, they're really out recruiting as soon as their spring season is over in March, April, all the way through, the high school start of the golf season, which is like the 1st of August. So they're doing a majority of their work during the off season, where a high school football recruit or a basketball recruit is actually having to send a team or people out to these certain locations to watch how players play at their particular games, Friday nights or Tuesday nights and Thursday nights when it's basketball. So it's a little bit different from that aspect because their seasons are basically doubled up, spring and fall. So their opportunity, and they're going to get the most out of contact with players and what they can do from an NCAA standpoint in those midsummer months where you see a kid playing at an AJGA event, a U.S. amateur event. At the Nota Begay that we had here, we had some high school coaches here as well. So you're going to see it majority of the time in the summer, and then to the late fall when their collegiate season is over. This year may be a little bit different because of the high school or the collegiate season is basically canceled through the fall for area golf teams and golf coaches and certain conferences. So they're going to have a little bit more time, but I'm not sure what the restrictions are on whether they're allowed to come see them during season or does it have to be after a certain point in the season.
Brian Tolnar, who runs Mill Creek, and he's our PGA guru, he joins us on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline. Brian, the next stop on the PGA Tour after an exciting PGA Championship, we go down to South Carolina, the Palmetto State Wyndham Championship. Can we talk a little bit about the Sedgefield Country Club? What kind of a golf course is this, Brian?
Absolutely. Similar to what you have here at Mill Creek. It was a Donald Ross design in 1926. It's a par 70, 7,100 yards, which if you think about length on the PGA Tour, it's a rather short golf course because we're looking to see 7,400, 7,500 and north of that. It's a golf course that has very small greens. There's a lot of hilliness to it. It's going to play firm and fast this week. Traditionally, 20 to 23 under. If you go based off of the other Donald Ross design they played earlier in the year when we just kicked off this back half of the season up at Detroit Country Club. Very similar in length, very similar in style, a lot of undulations. Everything's going to play firm and fast from fairways to greens. Puts an emphasis on short game. You really have to miss your shots on the proper side of the hole to be effective there, because there's a lot of places where it's an easy up and down. Humpar, move on, and there's a lot of places that these players will struggle to get it up and down if you miss it to the wrong side of the hole. So it puts a real premium on how well you're going to hit your iron shots. Not necessarily a premium on driving, although you can overpower the golf course, but majority of the field's going to have short irons into their hands on the majority of these holes throughout the course of the week and the weekend. So it's going to be a matter of who can hit it close, who can avoid a big number, making a double or triple, and who can get it up and down when they do miss that green. So, traditional Donald Ross facility, green state from back to front, similar to here. Part of their club, and what I think is probably the most unique, they have 36 holes there as well. Donald Ross designed the one, and then in 2007 they added another 18-hole facility designed by Pete Dye. So if you look at the father of architecture, which I look at Donald Ross as being that, and then Pete Dye basically took the reins over in modern day time. They've got two wonderful designs down there, but they'll play this championship on that Donald Ross design course. We're heading to a great tournament that's got 82 years of being in that area. Used to be called the Greater Greensboro Open. Sam Snead, set records there, won 8 times, won at age 53 in 1965. He's the oldest winner to this day to win on the PGA Tour. Although Davis Love in 2015 gave him a run at age 51 when he won his tournament down there. But a lot of great history there. Charlie Sifford from Cleveland was the first African American to be permitted to play in a PGA sponsored event down south. He led after the first round, tied for fourth. So there's some great history with some segregation being able to play in the game. In 2017, it was named the Wyndham Championship. It went from the Greater Greensboro to the Wyndham Championship. A lot of great history from scoring. Brant Snedeker in 2018 shot 59 down there. Comes home on a back nine, shoots 27. Just a great story for the game of golf at a facility that has old, rich ties to the PGA Tour. It's a great design. I think you're going to see a lot of birdies there this week. Somewhere between 20 to 23 under will probably win this event. I mean, you've got Sam Snead that won the event 8 times. Davis Love won it 3 times, last in 2015 at age 51. There's a number of great names that have won the tournament multiple times. Byron Nelson, Doug Sanders, Billy Casper, Sandy Lyle, Rocco Mediate, Brant Snedeker. I mean, just to name a few. So, I mean, there's a lot of great history, a lot of great names that have won it and competed there year in and year out over the 82-plus years of this tournament.
Brian, all that being said, like every week, run down your Power 5 and then tell us who you think has the best chance to win this weekend.
Well, Power 5 kicks off the number 1 spot, Justin Rose. Always plays well there. However, has trouble putting 4 rounds together. He's usually good for 3 of the 4 rounds. He just hasn't been able to get it done on Sunday. He's starting to putt it a little bit better, and he went back to his old equipment probably about a month ago. So I think he's hitting the ball better than he has, tee to green. I think with his past successes there, I think he's going to be our champion this week. Coming in the number 2 spot is Harris English. He hits a lot of fairways, a lot of greens, plays steady. He's probably the most consistent player on the PGA Tour in the last 4 weeks on the tour. He's got 4 top 20s in a row. He's 28th on the FedEx money list. Paul Casey comes in at number 3. Coming off a great performance at the PGA Championship on Saturday and Sunday. Pretty good for the 40 and over crowd. Patrick Reed's at that 4th spot. He's the 2013 champion there. He beat Jordan Spieth in a playoff in 2013. Consistently, he's been in the top 10 there over the last probably 4 or 5 events that he's played. And number 5, rounding out the top 5, is Webb Simpson, the 2011 champ and a 2-time runner-up. He's native of the area down there, so it's almost a home game for him. So I think he's going to be in the hunt this week, and if history shows how he's played all year, he's definitely going to be in that mix. Multiple winner in 2020. Just has had a great season. He's in the top 5 of the FedEx Cup standings. A couple sleepers to look out for. Brand Snedeker, two-time champion, obviously having the 59 there. He's got some great memories to draw on. Siwoo Kim, the 2016 champion, had a great weekend at the PGA as well. And then Tommy Fleetwood, I have him in our sleepers bunch. And tied for third at the Honda. He's got two top 20s. Number 13th ranked golfer in the world golf rankings, however, does not have a win on the PGA Tour. He's been around in so many majors, so many top 5s, so many top 10s. It's kind of shocking that he doesn't have a win on the PGA Tour right now.
Okay, I had my Carolinas mixed up because I had said the Palmetto State, and that's obviously South Carolina. This tournament is in Greensboro, North Carolina, so I flunked geography, obviously. My pick for this week is going to come out of left field because that's my golfing. It comes out of left field. I like Kevin Kistner in this. He's a South Carolina native, but for whatever reason, he has done really well at Sedgefield. What are the chances of Kistner being a player on Sunday afternoon?
He's certainly affordable to that. You know, it's going to come down to his driving accuracy. That's where he's kind of struggled a little bit all year. But if he keeps it in the fairway, and the fact that this golf course is a little bit shorter, so there's less of a premium on driving, he's certainly in that mix. There's no doubt. You know, you've got guys like him that are in the same boat. Harold Varner's another one of those guys. Rory Sabatini doesn't necessarily hit it lengthy off the tee. They get to be accurate at times, and when they are, they usually take advantage with good iron shots. Kevin Kisner is certainly in that bunch. If he gets it well and consistent enough off the tee, he's going to give himself a lot of opportunities to hit some of his good iron shots in there and give himself a chance on the weekend.
My pick for the first time, I think, is on your list, well, on your sleepers list. But I think Tommy Fleetwood comes in and gets his first PGA Tour victory. Like you said, he's been playing well this year. He's been close so many times. I think it's kind of primed for him. I have a couple of sleepers too. I think Abraham Answer is a sleeper, and I think English is also kind of a sleeper that might sneak in and compete this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, of that bunch, I mean, Tommy Fleetwood is certainly a person that you would have in your top 5 or top 10 week in and week out. It's a head scratcher why he's not won on the PGA Tour. He's won numerous times overseas on the European Tour, I think about 6 or 8 times. You know, he plays in some international events, plays good in the World Golf events, and plays really well in the majors. For whatever reason, he just hasn't gotten it done on a Sunday at a PGA Tour event, which is, to me, for how good he hits it and how good he plays internationally at courses all over the world, how he doesn't land one of these PGA Tour victories is beyond me. But, I mean, he's definitely a guy that you have to look out for, and it's just a matter if he can get it done on Sunday.
Brian Tolnar is our guest. We're talking PGA. Brian Tolnar runs Mill Creek, one of the finest establishments in terms of golf courses in the Mahoning Valley. And before we get into everything that's going on at Mill Creek, the obligatory Jason Kokrak comments, because he is a Valley native, graduate of Warren JFK High School. It seems like Jason has been good Jason and bad Jason this year. And the good Jason was alive and well for the first, I want to say, 27 holes of the PGA Championship. He was actually under par, and he was actually within earshot of the leaders. And then on the back 9 of the second round of the PGA Championship in San Francisco, his game completely fell apart, and he went from being 1 under par to missing the cut. He shot a 40 in the back half of round 2, the back 9. How in the world does this happen to a professional golfer? And is it just one of these things where Jason's fighting himself on the golf course right now?
Well, I think, especially on a major stage where the rough is traditionally a lot deeper, the penalties and margin for error is a lot greater. You can definitely turn a 1 or 2 under round or an even pair round into a 3 or 4 over round. And it's easy to do at those major events because your risk is a lot greater than a normal PGA Tour event where you can miss some shots and still get it up and down and give yourself some opportunities. But what happens is you get in these majors and you get it to 1 under, off a good start. You make a double or you make a stretch of bogeys. You want to try to make those up, and it's hard to make those up. You get to be more aggressive, hitting shots and more flags, and then if you miss those shots, it magnifies the error even worse, because if you short side yourself, it's almost impossible up and down. You're leaving yourself the 6 to 10 footer every time for par or a bogey, or you just don't give yourself some opportunities and some good looks. It may be a putt that breaks 2 or 3 feet. It's not very straight. You're going to make that putt probably 1 out of 50 times. So anytime that you're in a major and you start really pressing it, that's when you start putting up some really big numbers, and your scores start to balloon very, very quickly. I don't read too much into it just because it is a major. Now, obviously, if he comes down here and he's shooting 40 or 42 on a side, then you've got some issues that are more than just firing at some pins that you probably shouldn't have been too aggressive at. You want to be a little bit more conservative, but this week you're going to have to fire at pins. So we'll see where he's at, because the number at the end of the week is going to be that 20 plus under. I mean, you're going to have to make some birdies, and I think the player that wins this week, whether it be him or anybody else in the field, has to get off to a very hot start, because you're going to be playing catch-up all week if you don't. Someone's going to go out and shoot, almost close to 60, 62, 63 right out of the gate. So automatically, if you shoot even par 1 under, you got a lot to make up in the second day. And those players that shoot 62 the first day are backing it up with the 65 or 67. So it's hard to catch them. I mean, the closer that you're going to get is going to be in that 4th round, but it may be too late. So I mean, it's a matter of getting off to a hot start. And I think if he does that this week, he'll be right in that mix. But I wouldn't put too much weight into the back 9 of the PGA, because the risk reward is so much greater on the risk side at a major than more so at a normal PGA Tour event. Now, if he shoots a score like that this week, then he's got some mechanical issues that he's got to work on.
All right, so if you're in Jason's shoes and you're coming off a disastrous second round back 9, do you play the next weekend, or you take that weekend off and get a little perspective and get back on the proverbial horse the following week? Or do you say, you know what, I'm going to get back on the horse immediately, and let's see what we got in the next PGA event?
I think this week you get back on the horse and you play, and you try to dig yourself out of whatever idiosyncrasies that have come up in your golf swing. And I think having it be the golf course that it is, and this is usually a venue that it's usually not right after a major championship. It's usually a week or two leading into it. So a lot of guys normally play here. So it's a venue that usually has a good feel and a good level of competition, and no different to this week, because they've got some big names, from top to bottom on it. I mean, I think this week is, more important than ever, especially if you look at the season as a whole. I mean, their PGA Tour season is really condensed into this back half. So to be your best at, the U.S. Open, the Masters, and all the things that they have coming up leading into the fall event swing, with the adjusted schedule, you have to be ready now. So, I mean, you got to get out there and play. Normally in the summer, if you had this in May or June, I'd say, take the week off. Relax a little bit, see your family, play and practice and do some things at home. But under normal circumstance, that's where you would be. But under the COVID-adjusted season, I'd say you really need to get back out there and play, because, I mean, you've got FedEx Cup playoffs, the amount of events that you play in. You're trying to earn points to get into different levels of the FedEx Cup to guarantee your way into some of the latter events of the FedEx Cup playoff series. So, I mean, you have to play. You can't afford to take a week or two off and not gain those points.
Before we get into your much-anticipated tip of the week, the one that Ron needs so badly, let's
Hey, wait a second here. I resemble that remark.
Let's get into the kind of the week recap of Mill Creek and what's been going on down there, and how things are going at Mill Creek.
Well, we've been, after obviously the slow start, we've really crushed it the back half of this year. We're really right now prepping for the Greatest Golfer in the Valley, which we host on Friday. We'll have close to 300 participants here. That'll play half of them play in the morning, the other half will play in the afternoon. So we're really preparing scorecards and pin sheets and roll sheets, and preparing the golf course, marking ground under, the hazards, getting it ready for tournament play. So it's really a busy week for myself, the staff, getting the green speeds up to tournament ready. And pretty much after that, after Friday, all of this field will disperse over 4 different of the area country clubs. they'll make a cut, and then each division will have a certain amount of players based on the field size to go play the Lake Club on Sunday. So, I mean, this is our pinnacle event for the month of August. And then the week after that, Monday the 17th, we start putting in our capital improvement cart path project. So we're going to finish all the cart paths on the south course with asphalt, and we're going to finish the 4 holes remaining on the north course, 10 and 18, and we're also going to connect 13 and 14 on the north course that don't have cart paths conjoining. So, we're excited to be able to start those. It'll be a 2-week project, so the back half of August is going to be super busy, not only with play, but these capital improvement projects that are much needed, and they need to be done in a time where the ground is firm and they can get dump trucks and semis and all of that stuff on the golf course without doing too much damage. So we're happy for that and excited for that. And then as soon as that's over, we jump into September, and we host our AJGA event, and that'll be the 24th through 27th. So we'll have a couple weeks preparing for that, getting that ready. And then we'll have an international field, and a field that usually has, I think, about 40 plus of the 50 United States here on site. So we're excited to be able to host them. An event that's normally in the month of June, this year it goes to the month of September. So, the calendar is certainly full, and we're finishing up. We have a couple golf outings that are still going to go towards the latter part of the year. And then come October, we start airifying. But the things that we're hearing from our side is, if you play in the league out here, a lot of our golf leagues have guys that bowl during the off season. So a lot of the guys are staying away from the bowling aspect of it this year because they don't feel that it's safe enough for them. So they've basically asked us to extend their golf leagues through the month of September, through the month of October. The only juggling act that we have there is obviously the time changes, and you lose some time at the end of the night, but it's nice to be able to see golf continue deep into the fall this year, especially with the COVID stuff. It's an opportunity to be outside, to be safe, and it's a venue for people to get out of the house because, as soon as the end of November gets here in December, if we still have these COVID regulations underway, a lot of people are going to be stuck back inside, kind of how we were during the beginning of the year. So it's nice to be able to provide them with an outlet to play and continue our season. And I heard you guys talking about college football earlier. I'm the biggest fan of college football, but if it didn't happen, it wouldn't break my heart because I know that we're going to have weekends filled with golfers from morning till night until we can't get anybody out there. So, hopefully we'll capitalize on that, much like we did in the early spring when we were open before we shut down for that month hiatus. But all in all, it's a great year for golf and a great year to grow the game, and it's been a great year to bring people that haven't played in 10 plus years back into the fray.
Yeah, now you got disgruntled Buckeye fans that are probably not going to watch college football on Saturday because their beloved Buckeyes and the beloved Big Ten shut it down, and it looks like we are going to have college football minus the Big Ten and the Pac-12. Well, it's time for your tip of the week, and thanks to Anthony Hardwig, who just did a perfect Mike Clevenger impersonation, and I'm Mr. Plesac. He ran me over with the bus. So let us go to the one thing that I look forward to when I write word for word, so keep it slow. Brian Solmar, the field is yours, the microphone is yours. Your tip of the week, sir.
You got it. Last week we talked about there's going to be about 6 or 7 of these, of what I call uneven lies or trouble shots. Things that you run into when you hit a shot that's offline and you need to recover. So we're going to continue with that trend. Last week we did an uphill lie where you were hitting the ball up towards the target. This week we're going to go downhill lie. And I think we'll conjoin these two together, and next week we'll do a 5-hill lie where the ball's below your feet, following that up where the ball's above your feet, because they're good back-to-back, because they're going to be the opposite of what it was the week before. And the theory on hitting them are a little bit different. So we're going to talk about a downhill lie where the ball is even with where your feet are. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is club selection. We'll use 150 yards like we did last week. Normal players club at 150 yards is a 7-iron. So last week, if you recall, we were going uphill. So when we were going uphill and you get your shoulders square with the slope that you're on, you added loft to the club. So you had to club down. So that 7-iron was really turned into a 5-iron. You had to pull to make sure that you hit it the 7-iron distance. This one's actually going to be the opposite. So if I'm hitting a 7-iron 150 yards, now we're de-lofting the club. So now I have to club up. So that 7-iron is really turned into a 5. So I'm going to really grab a 9-iron because if I stand with my shoulders parallel to the ground, the loft of that 9-iron is now turned into that 7-iron. So we're deep lofting the club. You have to pick a club that's higher in number. That's the first thing that we want to do. Second thing we're going to talk about is our weight distribution. Because we're going downhill, the tendency is to fall forward towards the target. So you're going to go with the momentum of the hill. Gravity is going to pull you down. So we want to make sure that we make an adjustment for that. So we're going to grip the club in the normal spot that we normally would, middle of the grip, leaving that half an inch towards the end or butt of the grip to give us some control. We want to make sure that our weight's a little bit more placed on our back foot. So I'm going to say about 70% on your back foot, which will be closer to where the golf ball is going to be. So our position with the 7 normally would be in the middle. Last week we moved it forward with the uphill. As we're going downhill, we're going to move the ball back in our stance a little bit, just between the middle and the back foot. Because the first thing that you're going to make contact is with the golf ball, and we want to make sure that golf ball's back and it's being hit as soon as we make contact with the club. So the tendency of this shot, unlike last week where it caused a hook for a right-handed or left-handed golfer, the ball going downhill is going to cause the ball to slice. So we're going to have to aim, depending on the slope of the hill, 5 or 10 yards right or left of the target. So if you're right-handed, I'm going to aim left of the target, knowing that the ball is going to slice back to the right. If I'm left-handed, it's going to be the opposite. So we want to factor those two things in. The next thing that you want to do is you want to plan on the golf ball when it hits is going to have a little run to it. So I'm going to hit my shot. I'm not going to fly the ball directly back to where the hole is because I know when my ball hits the green, it's not going to have that good backspin that the uphill shot had or a normal shot would have. It's almost going to come off like a knuckleball or a little bit of top spin. So when it hits, the ball will have the tendency to jump forward. And we want to make sure that we play for a little bit extra run on the shot and just make your normal golf swing. So ball position back, weights on the back foot as well. Ball flight is going to be a slicing ball flight. When it hits, it's not going to have that good backspin. The ball will have the tendency to run out. So if you do those things, keep your balance, keep it nice and smooth. Don't try to take an extra club. Take a club that it'll be to the point where you can make a normal swing comfortably where you don't have to muscle it to get it there. Any shot that you have the ball above your feet, below it, or side hill or uphill with the ball above or below your feet, you want to make sure you're staying in balance. And part of our setup, by moving our weight, keeps us in balance, keeps us in check. Keep in mind that 7-iron is really turned into a 5, so you went from a 9 to a 7. You may only want to go to an 8 to make that smooth swing, knowing that it's going to be, bent down and de-lofted a little bit. So club selection is key, ball position is vital, and making sure that your balance is in check will guarantee that you hit a good shot out of this lie. Letting it run a little bit helps a lot as well.
Brian, for the scratch golfers, and Lord knows I'm not one of those, but for the golfers that are really, really good at this, 150 yards out, let's say they use a pitching wedge. Do you drop down and use a sand wedge on this? How do you go about this if you're a scratch golfer, Brian?
Absolutely. No matter what club you would normally hit from the yardage that you have, it would be a club less or 2 clubs less, depending on the severity of the hill. Now, if the hill has like a 30% grade, for example, it's hard to state this over the phone and verbally, then you'd want to go down a club. But if it's a steep hill, the steeper the hill, the more that club face is going to close. It may be from a pitching wedge to a sand wedge or a pitching wedge to a lob wedge in that case. So you bring up a very good point.
Brian, I wrote it down, and in parentheses I say, do opposite of the uphill lie. Because that's about the easiest way to save an awful lot of time. But I wrote everything down, and I swear if I come about to any of these situations, I have these in my possession when I go golfing. I have these in my possession. I'm actually going to staple these, and when I go golfing with my father, the next time we go golfing together, and hopefully it's soon, I'm going to staple these together, and when the old man is in a situation, I'm going to say, you want to do it this way, Pops. And he'll look at me and say, no. my guy Brian Zolnar from Mill Creek, who knows more about golfing than you do as an 87-year-old, you want to go about it this way and then celebrate with him when he hits a really good shot.
You know what I think we need to do? I think we need to create the Brian and Ron's YSN Tips of Golf pamphlet.
I like that. I think that DJ's computer savvy. I think that we could probably put this on a little pamphlet for everyone to have. I think that proceeds go to a charity. I think this would be phenomenal.
Yep. Give everybody a little flip book for their back pocket. They can read their notes and become better golfers. All at the expense of us and YSN. I think that would be great. All raising some money for charity. We better look into that.
I just want to see you try to teach Ron in person on how to do all these things. We'll have a little golf show. That'd be fun to have.
You know, I'm going to start calling you Clevenger from here on out. What the hell is this? What did I do to you? Good Lord.
I think during the off season in the winter, we need to go in studio. We could make that happen.
Hey, Brian, always a pleasure. Look forward to seeing you at Mill Creek very soon, and enjoy the rest of the day, brother.
You got it. Have a great week, Ron and Anthony.
I appreciate it. Brian Cholnar from Mill Creek, he joins us every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Seriously, what did I do to you? Who pissed in your Wheaties today? Good Lord, you're on me like white on rice here.
You're always decrepitating your own golf game, so I figured I might as well just...
Yeah, well, it's okay for me to rip my own golf game. You know, it's not good for you to do it.
You need a good foil every now and then, so I just play the part of your foil.
Well, you're playing the part of Clevenger right now. You're being a real douche nozzle. Jeez, oh, Pete. By the way, and we didn't know this on Monday, obviously, until it came out, and we haven't talked about this, but I got to get your opinion on this. Saturday, when we found out that Plesac went out with some friends and the Indians organization, rightfully so, rented him a car and said, yeah, you drive back home because we don't want you on the plane. Well, as it turns out, Monday it was announced after our show that Mike Clevenger was indeed the tag team partner of Zach Plesac, and he went out. Not only did Clevenger throw Plesac under the bus, Clevenger didn't tell anyone that he went out and went on the plane home. Now, what are the chances of these guys getting COVID? I don't know. But if any of them do get COVID based on this stupidity, look, and I said this, not only do you have guys that you are teammates with, that they're your brothers for a 6-month period, you got a cancer survivor on this plane. What the hell is wrong with you? Why would you do something like that?
That's what makes it so low. I mean, you know what Carrasco has gone through. You know that he's coming back. He's putting himself at risk. He's coming back just for the love of baseball. And you go and do something like that, not only go out, but then have the cojones to not tell anyone and watch your teammate get sent home while you fly home yourself with the team. Like, to just put into perspective how bad it is, usually players keep these things in-house if media asks about them. But Plunko yesterday ripped him on his press conference. I mean, he said he hurt
ripped
us,
both of them.
He hurt us bad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and it's going to take a lot of work to earn our trust back.
That's
not in-house, and it takes something big for them to not keep it in-house.
Tom Hamilton made mention that the players held a player-only meeting, and they didn't do it in the clubhouse. They did it out in left field. And Hammy and Rosie were not privy to that meeting. But you can tell if somebody is animated and has something really loud to say without hearing this. You can tell when someone is animated. And according to Tom Hamilton, there were plenty of animated guys in that players-only meeting. Look, when I said Plesac needed traded because of what happened, and I wouldn't have a problem with him being traded, now I'm going to switch my tune. Plesac gets a pass.
The thing is, Plesac could have been traded. Okay, I can see it.
Yeah.
No. Clevenger needs out of Cleveland.
He needs out of Cleveland right now.
Because there's no way you're going to mend that bridge. How do you mend that bridge?
You don't mend that bridge.
He
needs to be traded. And here's the thing, and I mentioned this. Look, the Boston Red Sox need pitching in the worst way, and they have a guy that the Indians need because the Indians' offense is god-awful.
They'll probably keep it in the National League, though.
If I sat back and went to the Boston Red Sox and approached them and said, hey, J.D. Martinez and the guy that you got in the Mookie Betts deal, Jeter Downs. Look, no secret. Lindor's not going to be in Cleveland much longer.
Doesn't Cleveland have a shortstop waiting in the wings that's pretty
Tyler Freeman can also play second base. Now, according to what I've been told, Jeter Downs can also play second base. He's big enough to where he can be a middle infielder or a corner outfielder. They're not sure which direction they're going to go, but Jeter Downs has a legit bat. If I'm Cleveland, I'm selling the fact that, hey, Clevenger has 2.5 years of club ownership where you're not going to pay an arm, a leg, and your firstborn. He went to arbitration for the first time this year. And Clevenger is a damn good pitcher, but he needs out of Cleveland. So if Cleveland were to get a J.D. Martinez and a Jeter Downs, and you give up Clevenger and maybe just because they need a replacement outfielder, give them Domingo Santana, I'm fine with that deal. But Mike Clevenger, based on the crap move that he did and an unforgivable thing that he did, he needs out of Cleveland.
I will say that is a decision that needs to be made after you have the GMs have a lot of conversations with the locker room and say, guys, do you ever, because the guys know more than anybody because they're the ones that spend time with them. Can you ever mend this bridge? Is there a chance, or do you think bringing Clevenger back would be cancerous to this team? Because they're the ones that ultimately have to make that decision, in my opinion. I think you have to have conversations with your players, open and honest conversations about what it looks like if Clevenger comes back compared to what it looks like if he's gone.
And to the Indians' credit, that's what they're doing. They are talking to the players, some of the bigwig players, the franchise players, the Biebers, the Lindors, the Reyes. You got to get Cookie Carrasco's opinion. Look, if anyone deserves to have a voice in this, it's the guy that could have potentially had disastrous results in Cookie Carrasco. If I'm Carrasco, I beat the crap out of both of these guys for doing what they did. But obviously, there's going to be a lot more than just putting them on the restricted list. Now, someone brought this up outside of the media, and I think it's an interesting topic. It's no secret that if you were to hold Clevenger down to the minor leagues for a certain amount of time, you can mess with his free agent clock. To where if he goes to the minors for a 3-week period, if you boot his ass off the major league club, and he does have one move left, one option equals 1 year. So you could, if he has one option left, you can move him up and down as many times as you want to. One option equals 1 year. To my knowledge, Clevenger has one option left. So you, by law, can tell Clevenger, get out of here for a 3-week period, and by doing that, he's now a free agent after the 2023 season instead of the 2022 season. Now, if you do that, Clevenger is going to be to the point where, look, there's no effing way I'm going to re-sign with this team. I'm gone. But you can also do this in hopes of, in the winter meetings, now, because he's a free agent after the 2023 season, whoever gets this guy when I trade him has 3 years of Mike Clevenger. So his value has just become that much more, where conceivably you can get more for a Mike Clevenger. It's just, A, who would take this guy, and B, who would take this guy. But
a lot of people would take that guy.
But you see where I'm coming from, because he's a hell of a good pitcher.
He's an ace in a lot of teams. I mean, there are a lot of teams right now where he'd be, if not an ace, he'd be the second guy in the rotation. The Indians can lose him because they have such a deep pitching staff that he doesn't have to be the guy that leads the team. I mean, they have so many good pitchers that are starting for them right now. So, but yeah, people would want him, and his value would go up. Do you want to make a decision that makes the Indians look just as petty and kind of juvenile. I don't know.
See, I wouldn't do it
Yeah,
for that reason.
you know,
because if you do that, then you have that reputation of being very petty and very juvenile, and not many free agents would want to deal with a team that's that petty and juvenile. I don't think you can do that.
The ball's in Clevenger's court right now, and Plesac, because how they handle it, how they come back to the team, and what they do to try to, regain any kind of confidence that they have in Cleveland is going to tell a lot. Because there's you can't hide behind this, and how they respond to it is going to determine what their kind of future looks like.
See, I'm already respecting Plesac a lot more than Clevenger, because at least Plesac owned up to it.
Did he, or was he thrown under? Like, would he have owned up to it if Clevenger didn't throw him under the bus to begin with?
I think what happened was, because Clevenger didn't tell anyone until Monday, Plesac owned up to it. He said, "Hey, I went out. My bad. This was a ridiculously stupid decision."
So it wasn't a thing where Clevenger pointed the finger.
Clevenger couldn't have pointed the finger, because if he did and then turned around on Monday and said, "Oh, by the way, I was with the guy," you're immediately unforgivable. There's no way that you could be forgiven of this. Look, there's no way that anyone's going to be able to forgive Mike Clevenger for what he did. He threw a teammate under the bus, and he also put a brother in arms in jeopardy. Whether people want to buy into all of this or not, even if there is a slight chance to go out in public and then turn around and fly the charter plane with a cancer survivor, you got to be A, an absolute knucklehead, B, a selfish human being, and C, both of the above. So for me, if I'm a player, I can't trust Mike Clevenger on the baseball field, and especially off the baseball field anymore.
The other thing I heard, and I don't know the validity of this, but I heard on Sunday, Clevenger tried to defend Plesac or something along those lines, where he kind of stood up for him in a team meeting. I mean, how do you do that? How do you stand up for the guy and then do everything that you did? I just kind of it feels like a kind of a sneaky individual.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I'm not gonna hear the excuse. Well, he's a young kid. He's 29.
He's a veteran now.
He's a veteran now. Look, if you want to pull that crap when you're 23 or 24, even if you're that age, you're still an adult. You're not a kid. I grow tired of hearing the comments from people saying, "Well, he's just a kid." Wait a second. Major League Baseball players, unless you're a 20-year-old phenom, you're not a kid. If you're past the age of 22, you ain't a kid. You're a grown-ass adult.
Even if you are a kid, your actions have consequences.
Absolutely.
And there's no way to escape that. I mean, he made a mistake, and I'm not someone that thinks mistakes always define what your future is, but you still have to pay for those mistakes. And he made the mistake, and now he's got to deal with the consequences. He can't hide behind things like, "I'm just a young kid," or "I made a you did. You made a stupid decision, and now you have to go and pay the piper."
And I think the piper is going to be putting together an awfully large bill. Just believe this as gospel right now.
And he put the team in a bad situation on the field because, Plunko had to come in and start for him because it was Clevenger's start last night.
And he pitched 4 innings and did a pretty nice job, but then you got to turn around and give it to the bullpen.
Against the best team in the National League.
Yeah, and they got destroyed. Yeah. So not only did you throw Plesac under the bus, you threw your whole team under the bus by not being the starting pitcher on Monday. Look, believe this as gospel. This is not going to just be, they're on the restricted list and we're giving them a slap on the wrist and that's all they're going to get. No. Mike Clevenger ain't pitching anytime soon for the Cleveland Indians.
Can you imagine what Terry Francona is feeling right now?
He's had a conversation with both of them, and the media asked how the conversation went, and Francona, in a very nice way, said, "None of your damn business."
Right.
But he did say something that I thought was very interesting. These two guys are at completely different levels of acceptance. And I think Plesac is at a much better place because he fessed up to it. At least Plesac understood.
And he went home by himself.
Yeah, and this is the equivalent, if you're a married person, this is the equivalent of your spouse cheating on you. Plesac at least had the balls to sit back and tell his wife, I've been cheating on you, and here's my car, and I'm going to go drive away. Clevenger is like, not only am I cheating on you, but I'm doing it behind your back, and you don't have a freaking clue. And then I'm going to throw my best friend under the bus.
My best friend who was cheating.
Who introduced me to the girl that I'm cheating on you with. I'm going to throw his ass under the bus. Both of them are horrible, but one's a forgivable offense now. The guy that at least said, hey, I did this, it's wrong, but I'm going to let you know that I did it. I would much rather have that guy on my team than the snake that doesn't tell anybody anything until, oh, by the way, we find out about it.
Running Point really turning into an after-school special. The next episode of Running Point.
Do we get a daytime Emmy over it?
Maybe, yes.
I mean, the ABC after-school specials did get a couple of solid Emmy awards.
I mean, let's do it.
I mean, I hate to tap dance on someone who's feeling down right now, but Dan Patrick is 0 for 3 in the Emmy awards. I'm just throwing it out there, by the way,
and Dan Patrick's a guy that went to Dayton too, and he's an Ohio guy.
Yeah, and I say it in jest. Look, a couple of years ago, Dan Patrick and the Danettes were at the All-Star game in Washington, and for whatever reason, Major League Baseball allowed me to cover the All-Star game for the sports animal. So I'm in D.C., and I'm watching the festivities. I think it was on a Monday before a ginormous rainstorm hit. So Dan Patrick and the Danettes are near the batting cage. And we have guys, I think this was the home run derby. It was either the home run derby or it was the prior to the All-Star game on Tuesday. One of those 2 days, not sure which one. But Dan Patrick and one of the Danettes was near the batting cage. And I'm like, okay, do I go up to him? I mean, how do I want to do this? So I went up to him and I said, Mr. Patrick. And he looked at me and he says, how are you? And I said, well, and I stuck my hand out and I said, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Ron Potesta, and I want to thank you for the monster ratings that you're giving me in Youngstown because I follow your show noon to 3 on the Sports Animal 1390, and we both got a chuckle out of it.
You're a great lead. You're a great lead.
I looked at him and I said, you're a great lead to my show, sir. I just wanted you to know that. And he's just like looking at me laughing because, let's be honest, if I thought I was being dead serious about this and he thought I was serious about you're a lead into my show, he'd have looked at me and said, get the heck away from me. But he knew that it was sarcasm at its best and we got a great laugh out of it. Great guy. We talked for about 5 minutes or so, and he's a wonderful guy. So I feel like I can take a pot shot knowing that I had that 5 minutes with him.
I'll take him over Jim Rome every day of the week.
You think?
As far as radio sports.
Oh, my God, absolutely.
Cannot stand Jim Rome.
You and me both.
And I love the video where
Jim Everett.
Yeah.
Well, that's what made him famous, though.
Right?
That's what put him on the map because his smartassery got him thrown to the floor, and then everyone was like, ooh, this guy's the guy that got thrown to the floor.
He's going to make content.
Yeah. Now he's got some content. Okay, yeah. Thanks for the vine.
He's always been the guy that goes out of the lines.
Yeah. He colors outside the lines.
I know you don't like ESPN, but credit to them because they gave him a show for like a breath, and they realized this guy ain't it, and they got rid of him.
Well, that's when ESPN was serious about its journalism. But it isn't now.
They saw Jim Rome and they said this guy's not it.
No,
he's not even.
I mean, in today's radio, they'd take him in a heartbeat. I mean, this is the same entity that got rid of Golick.
He retired.
Well, he didn't retire. They kicked his ass off the air. I mean, he's going to be doing color commentary because he's under contract for 1 more year. But after that, when he's done with his contract,
Mike Golick was a stud.
I'm going to guarantee you, someone is going to talk with him and become the next morning host
Come on, Mike.
nationally.
Come on, Mike.
Personally, if he
Mike and
replaced
Ron in the morning.
if he replaced a Clay Travis on Fox Sports Radio, I think that would be phenomenal.
I like Mike Golick a lot.
I love what Golick brings on the airwaves, even when he had Wingo.
And I like his son, too, Mike Golick.
Absolutely. They're both outstanding.
He's going to have a new show with Shanae Ogumake on ESPN, I think 4 to 7.
Yes.
So that's going to be fun to listen
And
to.
I think it's in its second week because they started this last week.
Greenberg's getting a new show.
Yeah, and he's
going to be all over ESPN. I mean, he has the morning show on the TV, and then he's got the radio show. And
yeah.
I never had a problem with Mike Greenberg.
No, I didn't like the way he left
Yeah.
Golick and Greenberg.
Right.
I thought it was Mike and Mike was a fantastic show.
Yeah, they really complimented each other pretty well.
Now I'll say this, and I'm not saying this because I don't like the New York scene. I happen to think New York is the greatest city in the world, but they're also the greatest city in terms of making mountains out of molehills. Mike Francesa and Chris Russo were okay. They weren't
Mad Dog.
They weren't. Mike and the Mad Dog wasn't as great a show as everyone says it was. I mean, it was okay. It was good radio, but it wasn't. It wasn't great radio because Chris Russo's awful.
I can't listen to. He screams, and it's like
I don't
even know what you're saying anymore.
And it's like you sound like the old man that's telling kids to get off their lawn, screaming all the time. Now, not me.
Is that the T calling the what's the?
I'm not that person. I mean, I have my views, but I'm not that person.
Get off my lawn.
I don't yell at everyone. I just I have a loud voice. I don't yell at everyone.
There are days, Ron, where you're get off the lawn.
Absolutely. When you bring up stupid crap that the modern people want, yeah, I'm going to say get off my lawn.
With your Staticast and Dungeons and Dragons sports.
Hey, it's the greatest tabletop game of the world. I'm sorry you people don't understand the perfection of Stratomatic. I'm sorry. It's the perfect sport. It's the perfect tabletop baseball game. It is. You should play it. You'd get a kick out of it. It's a great game. All right, let's talk hockey in a little bit. Tom Callahan will break down the
crazy playoffs
quarterfinals, including the epic 5-overtime game between Columbus and Tampa that forced the Boston-Carolina series to begin this morning instead of last night. We'll talk with Callahan in a bit. It's a Wednesday edition of Running Point. The MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline will be open in about 20 minutes. Back after this.
Baird Brothers remains your source for fine hardwood products. For the time being, we're open for customer pickup only on weekdays, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Saturday from 9 a.m. till noon. Place your order online at BairdBrothers.com. Baird Brothers, for the place you love.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
The 4M Company, being an architect and construction manager for over 40 years, has had the opportunity to use many different electrical businesses for our projects. The depth, quality, and knowledge and attention to detail displayed by Dickey Electric makes them stand out above all the rest.
For state-of-the-art expertise and a timeless commitment to our customers, contact Joe Dickey Electric. We are everything electrical.
Fresh limousine. I'm feeling pretty good about myself, like I'm living the dream. Platform shoes, strut down the street. It's gonna get hot in here. I hope you can handle the heat.
Over the years, you watched us grow, and as we've done, so has the Myers Family Insurance team.
Thanks to all of you who have trusted our families to help you with your Medicare needs.
Myers Family Insurance looks forward to helping you now for years to come. So call our family today and remind them how cute we are.
Myers Family Insurance continues to be the area's resource for all your Medicare and retirement needs. Call today, 330-286-3044.
It is a Wednesday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. Overtime seems to be the theme of the National Hockey League playoffs now that we've gone into the traditional quarterfinals. And to talk about this, we bring in Mr. Overtime, Mr. Excitement, Mr. Tom Callahan, our hockey guru. Tom, what's going on, my brother?
Ron, I'm working overtime to make sure people know what's going on.
Hey, do you get time and a half? Because if that's the case, I got to say you made a crap load of money for the 5 overtime game last night between Columbus and Tampa.
Well, what's the old saying, Ron? Double of nothing is nothing. So, yeah, I can claim all the extra time I want. Yeah, man, I can't. That game was going, for most people, far into the night. Now, fortunately, I'm on the West Coast, and so it wasn't super late for me, but, it was late enough that they ended up pushing, the Carolina-Boston game to this morning, which now itself has gone to overtime. So it's been crazy, but it's been fun. This is a fun postseason. It's, what, all of sports is in for a wacky 2020 if they play, when they play, and this is new normal for us.
If you're Corpusalo and you look at the statistical sheet and you say, I got a .966 save percentage last night and I freaking lose?
It's the worst, Ron, to think about, and so many records were set in that game, but I look at it, Corpusalo played his tail off, and Columbus deserved to win that game as much as Tampa Bay did. And I actually think, just like they did last time around, I feel like, Ron, they're going to give them a real run for their money because of the way Columbus plays. Tampa has a good shot at getting through, I think, but, man, I don't know. Columbus is the one team that should worry Tampa, and for good reason.
I mean, when you look at that series and Game 1 going the way it did, I mean, how hard is it for Columbus to come back and try to win after losing in 5 overtimes like that?
Well, both teams are going to be fatigued, and this it kind of goes beyond coaching at this point. This, to me, is more about your training staff and more about, the guys responsible for preparing the athletes' bodies to go out and do this again. I believe, from watching their style of play, and I'm not alone in this, the way Columbus plays is it's hard and effort-based, and so it does require a significant amount of energy to play that way, but Tampa wants to play fast, and Tampa wants to run the pace and run up and down the ice, and Columbus wants to do the opposite. They want to slow them down as much as they can. I really feel that if Columbus has the conditioning, they'll actually be the team more likely to bounce back in Game 2.
Tom, if Columbus happens to win in Game 2, and I was watching the game much like millions of other people because the ratings were incredible for this particular game the longer the game went, and it was announced, the commentators said, look, whoever loses this game, it's going to feel like you've been punched in the stomach because it's a heartbreaking loss to go this deep into the night, so deep that they had to move the Boston-Carolina game to this morning, and that game is now in overtime. If Columbus were to win Game 2, do you feel like they win this series?
I don't know if they win the series just because they win Game 2. I think and it's weird, Ron, because in the bubble, we have taken out some of the mitigating factors such as travel. And, the whole real home ice advantage. Now teams, the only advantage you get is last change, which is important. But I don't really think this series, when I looked at this series initially, I thought, well, this one will probably be over in 5, maybe 6. But I don't know that it'll be that quick, to be honest with you. I think these two teams are really good at negating what the other one does well. And so because of that, I think it's going to be back and forth. I think it's probably going 7 games. And you know what? Columbus is a 50-50 shot to win this series. I don't.
Tom. Uh-oh. We might have lost him. Oh, boy. All right, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a timeout, and we'll get Tom back on the air.
Get it back.
We got to get him back. So let's get Callahan back. Back in a bit. Stick around. More to come.
They say American craftsmanship is making a comeback. Of course, at Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, it never went away.
People are floored by Baird Brothers' authentic hardwood floors. They stare at our stairs and adore our doors. Baird Brothers reflects 3 generations of family craftsmanship. Visit our huge in-stock selection in person or at BairdBrothers.com.
Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
Planning a project around your home or rental property? Trust the electrical service to the local experts with 62 years of serving the Mahoning Valley. Joe Dickey Electric is your local go-to source for responsive, reliable residential electrical work. From everyday maintenance and repairs to new installations, electrical upgrades, and safety inspections, no job is too big or too small. Call Joe Dickey Electric today, 800-549-3976, or visit DickeyElectric.com. That's DickeyElectric.com.
Myers Family Insurance knows the importance of a great team.
Our team continues to grow to help you with your Medicare and retirement needs.
The annual election period is here, so it's all hands on deck to make sure your plan still meets your needs for 2020.
Call us today.
All right, welcome back to a Wednesday edition of Running Point, and we have reestablished connection on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline. Let's get back to Mr. Tom Callahan, our hockey guru down on the West Coast. All right, Tom, let's get back to where we started, and that's the Columbus-Tampa Bay series. You had said looking into this series, 5, maybe 6 games, now looking at what transpired in game 1, maybe Columbus does make this a very tight series.
Yeah, Columbus has a very legitimate shot to make this a series, and I wouldn't put it past them to be able to win it. I just don't think it's going to be like it was last year. Obviously, it's not going to be a sweep. They dropped game 1, but I think they caught Tampa Bay a little bit more by surprise last year. But don't overlook the fact that the way Columbus plays really does negate Tampa Bay's style and what they want to do. So, you know, if Columbus is going to win it this year, it's going to be a slog. They're not a surprise this year to the Lightning. I think it's still going to be a great series, but yeah, I give Columbus even footing to be able to win it.
Now, Columbus couldn't quite finish the upset, but Calgary did upset the Dallas Stars 3-2 last night. Calgary's not a team that we talked about a lot in our previous conversations with you. Do you think they're a team that can take the series against Dallas and throw an upset in there?
Absolutely.
Tom, you there? Oh, my goodness gracious.
Quit hanging up on Tom.
Yeah, I'm not hanging up on it. Okay, Clevenger. Yeah, thanks a lot. You see me doing this over here? No. Lordy. All right, so I guess we are going to try again. So let's see if we can have a third time as a charm. All right, we'll give it one more shot. Is he going to be calling us? Yeah, he is. All right. This is getting to be kind of hysterical now, Tom.
Look, I just don't want to talk to you guys.
Apparently, and here I got Anthony but doing his best Mike Clevenger impersonation, trying to throw me under the bus.
He hung up on you. I saw it.
Yeah. No, I absolutely think Calgary can pull the upset here. I don't think Dallas has the firepower, to be honest with you. I don't think they're also missing some key players right now. But Calgary just plays a tough, tenacious style, and they have enough guys going. I did pick Calgary to win this series. Actually, it's the upset that I picked in the West for this round. I believe the Flames will get past Dallas. Dallas just doesn't look good to me right now, and they two teams didn't look good coming back in. The Bruins didn't look good coming back in through round robin in Dallas, and I actually thought St. Louis, despite not winning a game, looked better than Dallas. But Dallas ends up with this 3-6 matchup with the Flames, and I think the Flames match up well with them. So, yeah, I think Dallas is going home unless they figure out a way to score some goals. They have 0 goal scoring. I don't see how they can do it.
Tom, the other playoff series that opened last night, and God, I wish the Blackhawks were younger, and we had Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane and Duncan Kennedy and the rest of those guys about 5 years younger. This would have been a hell of a good series, but I would love to see the Blackhawks stun the world and win this series. They don't have a snowball's chance in hell at winning this series, and they might not even have a snowball's chance in hell at winning a game in this series. They are just completely overmatched by Las Vegas.
Well, Chicago kind of made its own bed, Ron, when they picked to trade Robin Lehner, who's now ironically starting the series against them. And he was traded from Toronto and immediately to Vegas. Chicago ended up with Malcolm Subban from Vegas as their backup goaltender, and they said, we're going to go with Corey Crawford. Crawford won him a couple of Stanley Cups, but he's not only has he gotten older, which is not great for goaltenders, but Crawford also has concussion issues. And he also ended up, as it turns out, with COVID-19 before entering the bubble, and he had to recover from that. Crawford is a goaltender who needs a lot of defense in front of him. He can give you the first save, but doesn't always. I think the Blackhawks decided to go with Crawford for whatever reason, and that was the kiss of death for Chicago. Had they kept Robin Lehner, who admittedly is a free agent this summer, they would have had to spend some money on him, but I think it was the wrong choice, and I think it's going to bite him here in this series. Vegas, by the way, Vegas is a machine. I picked Vegas to win the Cup. Vegas is a very, very deep team. They can roll 4 lines, and they can play a couple different styles. They could play aggressive, they could play physical, but they can also play finesse. They really have a lot going for them. They're a pretty deep team. Chicago just can't match it.
Is Marc-Andre Fleury the backup, and that's the end of the story in Vegas, or is he going to get any kind of playing time in this postseason?
So there are people who think that's the end of the story, and Robin Lehner is the guy going forward. But I'll be honest with you, because of the favorable matchup against Chicago, it wouldn't surprise me to see Fleury get a game or two. Also, you look at right now, because they want both goalies going, and I think clearly Marc-Andre Fleury was not going. And so you want him to go. If he, let's say you put him in for game 2, he doesn't play well, then he probably doesn't see the ice again. But I think he gets one more start somewhere along the way, kind of like Carolina did last series in their round or in their best of 5. Game 3, they started James Reimer. And so they gave Reimer a chance to play. He won. He looked good doing it. So Carolina feels good about having both goaltenders in competitive play. I think Vegas would very much like Marc-Andre Fleury to be going. But if they have to lean on Robin Lehner, the only downside to Lehner is he has yet to make a deep career playoff run. And, he's only really upped his game to the excellent level in the last couple of seasons. But, we're at a point where I guess you have to take that chance if you believe he's your guy and run with him.
All right, the one game that was supposed to be played last night that got moved to this morning and now this afternoon because of the length of the game between Tampa and Columbus was Carolina and Boston. And you made mention, Tom, Boston did not have a good start when we went into the bubble. And they're going to be taking on a Carolina team that, well, frankly, Carolina looked pretty dang good in their victory to get into the quarterfinals. How surprised are you that Carolina has taken Boston into OT in Game 1 of this series?
Ron, I think this is going to be the most exciting series in this round is Carolina-Boston. Both teams play with pace. Both teams can play with an edge and sometimes go over the line. And you know what? I think if you're just looking for a series to watch, if you're a hockey fan, but maybe you're a Sabres fan or, your team is out, maybe you got bounced in the play-in round, I'd be watching this series the whole way because I think Carolina, Boston are two really, really good hockey teams. I picked this one to go 7, and I do think Carolina can beat Boston in a long series. And the only thing about the Bruins is, while they didn't look good in the round robin, they also weren't 100% healthy, and they are an older team. I mean, let's be fair. They're at the end of their window as far as aging out. So to me, maybe that means they took those 3 games that they got to play in the round robin just to kind of get their stuff together and try to really get those older guys going and get their legs churning. And that was their preseason, so to speak. And so now they turn it up a notch. And look, this is the core of a team that knows what it takes to win. And a couple of pieces have changed, but not a lot. And Tuukka Rask is still capable of being a world-beating goaltender. And I think the Hurricanes have a tall order, but I think they can do it.
Hey, is there any truth to the rumor that Chara was a server at Christ's Last Supper?
He's been out there for a while. He's not quite Chris Chelios old yet as far as being in the league, or Gordie Howe, who retired when he was 52. But he's getting there. And you know what? He doesn't look like he's slowing down all that much. Although Chara, being as big as he is, has always been a little slower, but he's been able to compensate because of how big he is. But I don't see him missing a step in his game so far in what I've watched in this return to play here, and that's kind of fascinating to me. He's a difference maker, but they need him to be if they're going to go anywhere.
Now we have a local guy in JT Miller from East Palestine, Stream City, USA, by the way. Playing for Vancouver, they start their series tonight with St. Louis. For all local guys rooting for JT, what kind of chances does Vancouver have in this 5 versus 4 matchup?
So, I've said a bunch of times, I like JT Miller. I like his game. I think he's a difference maker for the Canucks. I think he's what Tampa Bay is missing, honestly. But you look at this series, to me, St. Louis didn't look good in the round robin as far as playing their usual game. But that's another team that's been there, done that, won the Cup last year. I believe can put it together. However, Vancouver is a little bit more of an upstart team, I think, than people might imagine. They're still growing. They're actually, I think, a year ahead of their window. So the fact that they're doing this well right now is a little surprising, but they are relying on goaltending. And I think if they continue to get the goaltending and some timely scoring, and it's going to take a village for Vancouver, they're going to have to get a lot of guys chipping in. They don't have a Crosby-level superstar, really. But, they've got a bunch of young guys who are capable of doing these things. And if they're able to meet the challenge, they have a chance. I feel like St. Louis has the advantage in the series. I picked St. Louis to win this series, but Vancouver has a chance if they get the timely saves and then they find a way to generate goals against the Blues team that, quite frankly, will just wear you down, then maybe they're able to figure out a way to win it.
Tom, if you look up clutch saves in the dictionary, if you're a Penguins fan, this is a painful reminder. Mr. Price over in Montreal was the guy and the difference maker in that play-in series when Montreal upset Pittsburgh. Now, Philadelphia is a completely different animal. The Flyers are unconscious right now in terms of how good they are on the ice. This is a gigantic step upward for Montreal. do the Canadians have it in them to pull off the upsets of all upsets?
You know, Ron, the Canadians have a lot of nice stories going on right now. They have a lot of nice player development, and Carey Price decided once again to be Carey Price, and he was amazing. And that was my call, is that he had to be for them to win that series. But guess what? He was. So your goalie can steal you a series, and if Price continues to play hot, yes, they'll be there against Philadelphia. But look, for all the nice to have that Montreal has right now, the Flyers are a complete team. And you go back to the trade deadline, the Flyers only made 2 trades. They were not earth-shattering. They were depth moves, but I loved both of them. And I even came out of the trade deadline saying, look, I think Philadelphia is actually the team that set itself up the best at the trade deadline. If you remember, this was pre-COVID, way back when we had actual, like, real-world things going on. You know, Philly just, they're complete. They are so good, so deep. And I was not a Flyers believer for most of the regular season before the pause. I thought, okay, this has got to be smoke and mirrors. But the longer it went on, the more I watched this team, the more I watched their style of play. They're all bought in. They all play hard. And you know what? They're a steamroller right now. And so they picked right back up where they left off. They are probably the most dominant team in the Eastern Conference. So Montreal's chance for me is in the single digits of a percentile, and that's only if Carey Price absolutely stands on his head the entire series. I just don't think he'll be able to keep it going that long.
Are the other 2 series that we really haven't talked about, and 2 series that are intriguing to say the least. Arizona is going to be taking on Colorado, and that there is some intrigue in this match. I don't know if Arizona's around long term, but there's some intrigue in that match. And I think there's even more intrigue in the Islanders match with Washington. Can the Islanders physically slow down Washington's end-to-end game that they sometimes do? Both of these series are intriguing to me. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Islanders upset Washington in this series.
The Islanders have a good shot at it because of the way Barry Trotz coaches, and he can adjust. He is one of the great coaches who can modify game plans, make little tweaks, really sees what's going on. And because of that, I think if Washington changes things up, to try to find an advantage, he'll be able to counter it. The Islanders, on paper, are not the superior team, but Washington does depend heavily on its big guns. And if the Islanders find a way to shut them down, which I believe is very possible, then, yeah, the Islanders have every chance in this series. I think it's going to be a 6-gamer. I think Washington does come out ahead. The X factor for me is going to be Braden Holtby in net for the Capitals. So far, so good. Holtby's looked really good. He needs to continue to do that. There's nobody behind him. It's him or nothing. So at that point, I think the Islanders, if they can get to Holtby, will win the series. But they're going to need to really be aggressive, and they're going to need to throw a lot of pucks at the net, get bodies in front of him, and knock him off his game. And they're going to have to play a gritty type of game to do that. So you're right, Ron. I think that's going to be an excellent series, and a very entertaining one.
All right, Arizona and Colorado, what are your thoughts on this series?
Avalanche look amazing to me right now. They and Vegas are the class of the West, and there's no doubt about that. The Avalanche are also a very deep team. Nathan McKinnon is probably the best player in the game right now, and I say that with all respect to Connor McDavid, but McDavid's not playing right now. So, McKinnon is playing on a team that has a lot of talent. They have 2 quality goaltenders. They have good defense. Their special teams look sharp. I like Colorado a lot. I don't think this is going to be a very long series, and that's no disrespect to Arizona, who really did a great job to beat Nashville. They're just not Colorado. Colorado is among the class of the NHL right now, and I think it's going to be a Vegas-Colorado conference final on the West.
Now, if you said those 2 are the class, I mean, if that's a matchup, Is there any team that you think has an edge right now between Colorado and Las Vegas, and when they match, if they match up?
Well, I'm really, I mean, obviously upsets happen, and you think of that. And if they do end up going through and reseeding, Calgary could play a spoiler. I don't know. And I expect, as I said, the Blues to win. St. Louis is a team that you can't really call them a spoiler because they're the defending Cup champions. That's a tough, grinding team. I love the way St. Louis is built. I think they're built to win in the playoffs. But I just think head-to-head with either a Vegas or a Colorado, the Blues are just a notch below at this point in the West. So it may come down to, with Colorado and Vegas meeting in the Western Conference Finals, who's had the tougher road, who's played more games, who's had more of a grind. Not so much from a standpoint of I expect people to be quote-unquote tired. They've had 4 months off. But just the wear and tear on your body, the possibility for injuries, that kind of thing, can really rattle some cages. And so I think that will be what might be a determining factor.
All right, Tom, a couple more things before we let you go. Let's go into the semifinals, even though the quarterfinals just started. Assuming Vegas gets the job done against Chicago, who do they have in the semifinals? Do they reseed, or do we already know who their opponent is going to be?
So they do reseed, so we will not know, assuming all the way through. We have to wait for all of the series to settle. And then, which I like, by the way. This is not something the NHL normally does. Normally they kind of bracket your way out. But they're going to reseed this year, Ron, and I like that idea. So, if Vegas is the 1 seed, if Calgary gets through and they're the lowest seed, they'll face the Flames as a 6. So, that would then set the match up, and let's say if St. Louis wins the other series, they go head-to-head against Colorado. Might actually pave the way, if Calgary does upset Dallas, to then make it a little easier on Vegas to the point where we were just making a minute ago. But, yeah, it's going to be reseeding, and I think that that's for the best. I think that's really going to make for the most fair matchups.
The general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins yesterday just completely lambasted the organization. And let me just say that the offseason in the Steel City is going to be entertaining based on what Jim Rutherford said to the media yesterday. Did you catch wind of this? And what, if you saw what Rutherford's comments were, how do you translate those comments? Because it sounds to me like he's ready to clean house. Everyone not named Sidney Crosby is tradable.
Yeah, and you know what? It's understandable. There's a lot of frustration there. You don't have to read between the lines to see the frustration there. And today the Penguins let go of their assistant coaches, all 3 of them. Sergei Gonchar, Jacques Martin, and Mark Recchi, all gone. So that's your start. And they're keeping Sullivan, who, I praise Sullivan all year for the job he did dealing with the injuries he did. I think Rutherford and I think Penguins fans are frustrated with what they saw out of players like Geno Malkin. Crosby can't do it all. That's just the reality of it. I mean, he's a superstar player, but your roster is not one player and a goalie. They don't play one-on-one out there. And so I think that the supporting cast around Crosby just wasn't there. And plus, as we mentioned, Crosby and Malkin are getting older. And, this is, and again, Rutherford saying, hey, we want to go younger. Cautiously younger, but I think essentially what he's saying is he feels the window on the vets is closing. Chris Letang didn't really get a lot out of Chris Letang there, and you don't want to hold on to those guys past the point where they're look, this is going to anger Penguins fans, but those players' names are assets. Letang is only worth so much. Crosby's only worth so much. Malkin's only worth so much. If you're going to move on, you have to get value for those guys while you still can. If Malkin was traded this offseason, I would not be surprised. If Letang was moved this offseason, I would not be surprised. And given what we saw from Rutherford the other day, I think the Penguins, it's not a rebuild, but a retooling for sure. They want a little more energy. They want a little more effort. They feel the effort wasn't there, and I don't blame them.
All right, let me throw out a wild idea, and this is based upon the winner of the NHL draft, which turns out to be the New York Rangers. There is a guy that is the overwhelming favorite to be the top pick in the NHL draft. A lot of experts have compared him to a Sidney Crosby. In what world would this exist, where the Pittsburgh Penguins have the stones to call the Rangers up and say, we will give you Sidney Crosby for your number one pick and a couple of your top farm system performers or kids that are starting to establish themselves in the National Hockey League? And if this were to be done, what would the reaction be to the typical Penguin fan if this deal were to be done?
I think so. Going back to what Rutherford said, and as I said, I would not be surprised in GM doublespeak if Malkin or Letang were moved. Rutherford says he's not going to do it. That's great. You can say that. We'll see. But here's the thing, Ron. If you're going to move forward, I think the one guy you do need to keep, if you believe your window is still now, and Rutherford does, according to what he said yesterday, is you have to keep Crosby. And if I'm the Rangers, that team, the core that I now have, is young enough where I think I would rather have Lafreniere, his upside. Now, his immediate impact will be good, but what he gives you down the road and the ability to make the Rangers a team that can compete for the next 5 to 7 years because you have a young core in place, I think what Crosby gives you in the return. And the Rangers are not, I don't believe, Stanley Cup contenders next year. I believe they are in 3 years. I believe they're a playoff team next year, the year after, if they continue to advance. So I don't think the Rangers would make that deal, to be honest with you. I don't think it fits in with their timeline of where they're going.
If the Rangers were closer to a cup, would they make that deal?
You would have to consider it. I think it would depend on the other pieces that go with it. So if the Rangers, let's say the Rangers were still playing and just somehow had this number one pick. So we have to make a couple assumptions here. But let's say they're still playing and they make it to the round of 8 or maybe even a conference final, the round of 4. Maybe you say, you know what, guys, we need to go for it right now because we're hot, we're good, and we don't want to wait. But I just don't see the way things are currently because they didn't advance and they showed some holes that they need fixed. And I think that, building the way they have, they've been very patient, much to the chagrin of Rangers fans, but they've been very patient with their build, and I think that that's what they need to continue to do.
Is Lafreniere the legit deal?
From what I've seen, yes. I haven't seen a lot of him playing. I take a look at his game. I wonder how much he's going to be able to handle the weight of the NHL to begin with. I think he may struggle with that a little bit. And it was announced today, Bob McKenzie, by the way, on Twitter, who's a hockey insider for TSN, saying Lafreniere has announced he's not going to Rimouski's training camp in junior this fall. He is not going to do anything but train in his hometown. He's going to enter the draft, and he expects to report to the Rangers in November when they open camp. So he's already planning to start the year with the Rangers. To me, it's going to be, is he going to be strong enough? Not is he fast enough, is he shifty enough, is he going to be strong enough? And he may, it's a jump from junior, you're playing 16 to 20-year-old kids, and some nights it's men against boys, but it's nothing like playing a 25-year-old or a 28-year-old in the NHL who's got 10 years under his belt and, knows how to rub you out on the boards and pin you against the wall. I mean, he's got to have that strength and that ability to get through that.
You talked about players that the Penguins could trade in this offseason. What teams are the most likely to give the Penguins a call and try to get these pieces they have? And then what could the Penguins kind of expect to get in return from the pieces that they can move?
Well, and it depends which pieces, because now we're in a new reality with I'll call it the COVID cap, because the NHL salary cap is not going up next year. There are teams, actually there's some teams that are pretty desperate when it comes to their cap situation, and I look at Toronto because they're the most egregious example. But the Toronto Maple Leafs are so far over the cap, and they are really in trouble. I don't know that they're going to be able to figure out a way to get underneath it. If the Penguins are moving contracts that carry money, then that's going to be harder to do because they'll have less dance partners. But the Penguins, kind of looking at next year, and CapFriendly is a good site for this if anybody's interested in things like this, but CapFriendly.com has the Penguins listed currently at having, you're allowed 50 contracts. They have 47 signed. Their cap hit is at $81.7 million, and they're using some long-term IR relief to get under that. They have about $800,000 in cap space with 3 contracts hanging out there. The Penguins don't have a lot of room to bring salaries back. They just don't. They would have to unload salary to accept salary. So the Penguins, what you could expect realistically in return if you're dealing players is prospects and picks. Because of that, because of what Jim Rutherford said, because of the reality of that, I don't believe they're going to make a lot of deals unless they really clear space for someone else who's a big name coming in, because that's not what they want right now. They believe they're at the end of a window, but still in that window. So you can expect one of the goaltenders to go. That's going to free up some room. I don't think they keep Matt Murray and Tristan Jarry. I believe that you're still going to need a second goaltender, especially if you go with Jarry. You're going to need an experienced vet behind him. Otherwise, you might as well keep Murray and tell Jarry, hey, it's going to be another year or two. So I don't believe the Penguins are going to have the luxury of being that active because they don't have enough cap room to do it. And everybody's kind of hamstrung by this right now in the National Hockey League. It's just the reality of what it is. Where there's a different situation where the cap went up $4 or $5 million this year, yeah, they got some room to wiggle, but I just don't see it for next year.
Hey, Tom, before we let you go, the obligatory baseball question, because you're a huge baseball fan like I am. It was reported that if we get a postseason, assuming that the 60-game season is attainable, and we get into postseason, there is a chance that you'll go bubble in Major League Baseball for the postseason. In your opinion, what are the chances of Major League Baseball Players Association, the most powerful sports union in all of sports, what are the chances of the MLBPA saying, oh, yeah, we'll do the bubble in the postseason?
Well, I think that would be the safest way to go. But look, right now they're learning what should be cautionary tales. They should be looking at, say, the St. Louis Cardinals or Miami or, even what they had to do with Philly. It wasn't Philly's fault, but Philly lost games because they had to. They had to be safe and quarantine and clean everything. And look, you got to bubble these guys. And again, it's unbelievable to me that a player just decides, I'm going to leave my team hotel in Chicago and go hang out with some buddies. Man, that guy would not touch the field for the rest of the year for me. You're a professional. You have one job. It's to play ball. And you need to keep yourself and your teammates safe. And you're getting paid a lot of money to play this game. So I don't think the requests to, stay in your room and observe the quarantine and the protocols are all that ridiculous. So that said, you can tell where I'm going with this. If they don't bubble, what's acceptable as far as how far back do you have to push the World Series? Here's the other thing, Ron. I will argue in favor of a bubble in a nice weather climate if things are under control in a place like a Florida, a Texas, an Arizona, a California. Why? Because if you do need to push the World Series back to October, possibly to November because you've got to wait, then guess what? You have good weather and sunshine.
I agree with that.
You quarantine in Chicago, you're going to have to play around the snow.
No, there's no question. If you're going to bubble, then you better put the National League in Los Angeles, and you better put the American League in Anaheim or a city that has as much sunshine. Because if we're going bubble, then I don't want to play a World Series, and I don't care who plays in the series. I don't want a World Series filled with snowflakes and cold temperatures. If we're going to go into a bubble, then let's have a World Series filled with an abundance of sunshine and temperatures in the 70s and 80s.
I completely agree, Ron. But I don't know. Right now, I just feel like we're in Major League Baseball is a wagon. The wheels are rattling like crazy right now and threatening to come off at every turn. I'm a little concerned that we're even going to make it that far.
Yeah, that's a great point. Hey, when you get off the phone, Boston and Carolina will be in the second OT. Boston on the power play. If the Bruins want to end this, there's a great way to end it. You're on the power play. You get the extra man. Lord knows Tampa had plenty of opportunities to do it, and they crapped on themselves and ultimately won the game in the fifth overtime. But they did have 2 power plays earlier in OT. Let's hope that Boston has an opportunity to end this thing in the second overtime, and they get a chance with the power play.
You know what, Ron? Any shot's a dangerous shot in overtime. You never know what deflection or what bounce you're going to get. So, I mean, for both teams, just throw pucks at the net, and something's going to go in.
Tom, always a pleasure. Look forward to catching up with you soon, brother.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Ron.
You got it, man. Our hockey guru. I feel like my hockey IQ goes up every time Callahan's on the air.
Oh yeah, because there's still some things that he says that if this is like another hour-long show, I'd be like, can you explain that some more? Because hockey's kind of alien to me when it comes to the ins and outs of it.
Let me ask you, in the COVID world, have you found yourself watching more hockey?
Yeah, because it's the play. I watch any sport when there's something on the line. Like if it's playoff hockey, yeah, I love it. I probably wouldn't watch it if it was just regular season hockey in COVID-19. But the fact that you're watching it and it's a series and it's kind of like there's always something on the line. It's just something about playoff sports. It doesn't matter what it is. It's exciting.
Yeah, I think that the fact that the National Hockey League has, with all due respect to the NBA, I think the NHL has done an even better job because nobody's going to a strip club to get wings in the NHL bubble, and everyone is airtight. I think because of that, and because of the fact it's the friggin' playoffs, and the playoffs, and I have said this on a number of occasions, as big of a baseball fan as I am, and I am a baseball guy, you will never convince me that the best playoffs aren't the National Hockey League. Those are hands down, send home the jury, the best playoffs, and it ain't even close. Their playoff scenarios are phenomenal. Yes, the NFL has the one and done, I get it, but the NHL, you give me a Game 7 in any sport, and the NFL is essentially a Game 7 in the postseason because it's one and done. Of the 4 major sports, if I had 4 games on TV, a Game 7, which one am I seeing? The NHL. It's not even close. It's that much better than any other sport. So all of that being said, I think the NHL, if you're not watching the NHL because you're not a hockey fan, do yourself a favor and watch the NHL, and I will guarantee you 2 things. Number 1, you're going to be blown away by the talent, and number 2, you're going to become an NHL fan. It's a great sport.
It's an easy sport. I'll tell you, I had a hockey phase when I was like 13 to 15 where I was really into it. And I just picked a team because there wasn't really Kansas City didn't have a team. I liked the Sharks when I was a hockey fan.
There you go.
Maybe it was just a little, I don't know, I was a kid. But it's easy to kind of get indulged into if you just kind of watch a couple games and you're like, oh, this is fun. This is fun to watch.
It is.
So
it is, and it's. I'm looking forward to. Hopefully, these guys are still playing when the broadcast is done. Carolina and Boston about to go into the second OT. Boston on the power play. Hell of a way to start a series. Now, it's not going to be as good as the way Columbus and Tampa did their series. I don't think this goes 5 OTs, but it's a great way to open up a series.
Yeah, I mean, the playoff. How about remember the Avalanche game that ended by
1/10 of a second?
I mean, the playoffs so far in the NHL have been chaos. Really, it's fun.
Nothing short of spectacular. All right, the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline is open, 330-886-0813. Back in a bit.
Yeah, 10 minutes, kids. Get the phone in.
Yeah, you got a few minutes left. Back in a bit. Stick around.
Hey, my Ohio friends, it's Mike Ditka, and I know great talent and heart when I see it. I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are average real estate agents, then there are true champions. Kelly Warren is one of those champions, and you have her right there in your own backyard. Kelly outmarkets and outsells every agent in the Mahoning Valley. If Kelly can't sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, Kelly will buy it. Get your home sold. Call Kelly Warren today at 717-2689 or go online to kellysoda.com and start packing.
You can feel it. Baird Brothers' traditional craftsmanship. You can see it. Baird Brothers' timeless style. And you can afford it. And find everything at BairdBrothers.com. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is real hardwood, yet beautifully affordable. Floors, moldings, interior doors, bar rails, and stair parts. All within your means and without a care. Start at BairdBrothers.com. You have made it. Your home.
Teams work hard and give it all they've got. Well, so does ours, because 21 Sports and YSN give you extra effort when covering local sports. 21 Sports and YSN, winning coverage of our Valley's teams.
Welcome back to a Wednesday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. The MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline is open. 330-886-0813. Ron Potesta with you alongside my partner, Anthony Clevenger. Hardwig, as he has thrown me under the bus on more than one occasion today, and I thank you very much.
Hey, like I say, sometimes you need a good foil.
So there you go. And by the way, we were talking about Clevenger in the during the break. Maybe Clevenger can get a hold of Kelly Warren, and he can sell his house in Cleveland and start packing, because I just don't see a world in which the current members of the Indians are going to be forgiving this guy anytime soon.
Yeah, it's chemistry in the Indians' locker room has to be shaky right now.
By the way, the
Indians doesn't get easy because they're playing the Cubs.
Yeah, and they lose to the Cubs yesterday. Game 2 of that series is going to be this evening. As Mr. Carrasco is on the bump for the Tribe, Hendricks on the mound for the Cubs. This should be a fun game. 6:10 start. The Indians looking to split the Cleveland version of their series before they move to, they're actually not going to play the Wrigley Field portion of this series for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, they're doing what the Royals are doing, where they're playing, it's a 2 weeks of either we're playing the Reds or we're playing the Twins. For the next 2 weeks, it's just kind of split around. 2 with the Reds this week, and then we play a weekend series with the Twins, and then I think we play a 4-game series with the Twins. We're off on Tuesday. 2 more with the Reds, and another weekend series with the Twins. It's the way the schedule worked out.
White Sox and the Tigers playing some afternoon ball in the Motor City. The White Sox leading the Tigers top of the 5th inning. They've put up a 4-spot. Still batting. Detroit had put up a 4-spot in the bottom of the 4th inning. White Sox answer with 4 of their own.
Detroit's offense.
Pitching is optional today.
Detroit's offense is legit.
Well, and this is without Miggy Cabrera, who's had a god-awful year, and I think Father Time is finally catching up to Miggy.
For the first week or so, it looked like, hey, Miggy's going to be a legitimate, just a DH guy that can go and get you hits because he was hitting well. He already had, I think, 3 home runs in his first week of baseball. He had his first multi-home run game since, I think, 2016. But then the wheels kind of fell off for Miggy, and God bless him. I think he's still one of the best hitters I've ever seen. But he's, as you said, Father Time definitely getting a hold of him.
And Miggy, he wasn't exactly the greatest in-shape guy.
No.
Even when he was 18 and I saw him in the Florida State League with the Marlins organization, and he was playing for the Marlins then FSL affiliate in Jupiter, he wasn't the most in-shape kid as an 18-year-old. And here he is now, 6'4", about 250, and he's 37 years of age.
I'll tell you, I saw him a couple weeks ago when they played the Royals, and he's got a lot of knee problems, and he's not going to be running down the line. But he looked a little leaner this year. I think he cut that 250 maybe down to 230 or 225 because he looked a little bit leaner than he has in the past.
He's a great guy. And I'm with you on this one. As far as right-handed hitters are concerned, in my lifetime, and again, I can only go from 1971 when I started watching baseball as a 7-year-old. So I caught the tail end of Clementi's career, tail end of Willie Mays, tail end of Hank Aaron. I'm more into the careers, almost start to finish, of a Johnny Bench, a Reggie Jackson, that era, Mike Schmidt. From beginning to end. As far as I'm concerned, the best right-handed hitters that I have ever seen, you can put a short list together: Albert Pujols, Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, Mike Trout, Miguel Cabrera. And I'm not necessarily sure that's in order because Miggy has something that none of those four guys have, and that's a triple crown.
And when you break down Miguel Cabrera's swing, it's so pretty. It's such a good swing. Technically, from its sound, it's no wonder he's one of the best hitters that we've seen in the era because he's got the swing. If someone came to me and said, "Hey, teach my kid how to swing," I'd probably show him Miguel Cabrera's.
He and Manny have the two best right-handed swings I've ever seen.
I mean, it's
just those two guys are one and 1A as far as the best swing from the right-handed side of the dish. Now, you look at A-Rod, like him or hate him.
His swing mechanics weren't great.
No.
He just was good enough that it didn't matter.
Exactly. A-Rod might be the most talented of the five, and I don't know if he's as talented a player as Mike Trout is because, look, Mike Trout is the modern-day Mickey Mantle without the alcohol, where Mantle drank himself into a career that was still Hall of Fame, but not the impact that everyone thought when you saw him coming into New York and actually supplanting one of the greatest baseball players of all time to a corner position in Joe DiMaggio. You just don't see that. You don't see a guy telling Joe D, arguably one of the greatest to ever play the game, hey, move over, I'm better than you defensively.
It'd be like if someone did it to Mike Trout on the Angels.
Exactly.
Someone came up from the Angels organization and said, sit down, Trout.
Or move over to left field, right. I'm better than you defensively here in center field. You just don't see that. Look, Mike Trout is Mickey Mantle without the alcohol.
Which is better.
Which exactly. And I think Trout's going to have an even better career than Mantle's because, I mean, this guy's, there is no weakness in his game.
No.
None.
Really not.
He is the ultimate five-tool player, and he didn't have to do steroids like Bonds.
We need to get, not proven.
Not proven, but, I mean, look, the goose head got to be Barney size.
If the helmet doesn't fit,
you must have quit.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, that's good.
But Mike Trout, we need him in the playoffs. We need him in the playoffs.
Well, we need
the playoffs to serve Mike Trout, and he's only been in there once, I think.
We need Mike Trout to be on national TV more often.
And unfortunately, he plays on the West Coast, so.
It doesn't matter. I mean, you can put him on Sunday Night Baseball.
Right.
I mean, when the Angels come to the East, I mean, all these years that we've had normal baseball. Now, this is the COVID world, and they're going to be playing Western Division teams. I get that. But all these years leading up to this year, you think about the stupidity of Major League Baseball and their marketing. All these years where the Angels were playing a Sunday series, you mean to tell me that you couldn't have had that game played on a Sunday night? Okay, I get it. It's getaway day. I get it. And under normal circumstances, you wouldn't do that. But if you give the Angels an off day on Monday and they tell them to go back and play in California, or you can continue your road trip after an off day on Monday, all these years of having Trout, the best player in the game, how many times did we see him on Sunday Night Baseball?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. That's why Major League Baseball sucks when it comes to marketing. I'm just saying.
Sunday Night Baseball is all about the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Nationals.
Just stop already with that.
So, hey, I've seen a handful of extra inning games, and the more I see, the more I think that home team has a heck of an advantage in extra innings. it's kind of like college football where you always want to be on defense in overtime because
sure,
you know what you have to do after the team that's away does whatever they do at the top of the 10th.
This goes hand in hand with a home field advantage. I mean, no doubt, and especially if your pitching staff can get out of the 10th inning unscathed and leave the runner at second or third.
All you really have to do if the other team doesn't score is just bunt them over.
Bunt them over to third, or have a guy that's a left-handed batter slap the ball to the right side of the infield, move him over to third base, and then just bring him in on a sacrifice fly, game over.
Here's another thing I thought was interesting. Starting the 10th with a runner on second. Strategy-wise, I'm thinking, why don't you just walk the first hitter? Because that runner on first doesn't matter. It's not going to, if the runner on second scores.
Set up a double play.
Set up the double play. You got to force out of any base. I don't see the difference between a runner on second with nobody out and a runner on first and second with nobody out.
Especially if you have the middle of the lineup up.
Right.
Now, if you're in the bottom portion of the lineup, I'm not so sure that I want to. Let's say the 9 guy is leading off. I'm not going to walk the 9 guy.
No.
But
with 1 out, I might walk the 1 guy.
Agreed.
To the 2.
Agreed. And then in this spring strategy, which we love to talk about with baseball, but I don't like the idea of starting an inning with a runner at second base because it just doesn't make any sense to do that because you're playing 9 innings without starting the runner at second base.
It's different strategy. It's all the strategy still there.
I understand that. I'm not down with a runner at second on the extra innings. If you're going to do that, then do it when the playoffs start. Magically, this goes away. Unlike COVID, magically this goes away when you go to the playoffs. Well, if it's good enough to do it in the regular season, then do this in the postseason. You're not doing it in the postseason. That's why I don't like it. If you say, we're going to do this in the postseason, okay, I don't like it, but now I can start to think, okay, maybe this is here to stay because you're going to do this in the postseason. I don't like it, but, maybe you change my mind ever so slightly.
So you think no matter what, it's not going to be a rule in 2021, even if it works completely?
If it's a rule, then I want it to be a rule for every single game, including the postseason.
What if this year, because it was a trial rule, they didn't want to commit to having it in the postseason in case it tanked?
Yeah.
In case it didn't work. So
sure.
Then next year they say it worked in the regular season, so now it's universal. It'll happen regular season.
Look, if they do that, as long as they say it's going to go into the playoffs. Now, I may not like it, but if they're going to do it, start the season, through the season, into the playoffs, then I don't have a beef with it, other than the fact that I don't like the rule. It's the same thing with the DH. If you're going to use the designated hitter, then either use it the entire postseason and every team in baseball has it, or you don't have it for nobody.
That does extend to the postseason, right?
Well, it did. It did, and then they got into that concocted, stupid idea of, in your National League park, you don't have the DH, which, again, this is the
for this year they're doing that.
Well, now it's universal.
That's what I meant.
It's universal, so we're going to go postseason with it.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if you want to go universal DH in 2021, okay, my idea is better, and that's have the starting pitcher and pitchers hit until the starting pitcher is taken out of the game. Then the DH hits in that particular spot. I think that brings more intrigue to the game. Because now all of a sudden you have a power hitter in the number 9 spot instead of a jabroni.
I'm an absolute DH guy, but I will point out as devil's advocate that the DH numbers so far this year are very bad.
Yeah.
And if your argument is like the pitchers just don't hit, you look at the DH numbers so far this year.
The worst hitting in all of baseball in any year, 2020.
The DH, especially the DHs, they're just across baseball. They're not hitting well. There's some that are hitting well, but the average DH in baseball not hitting well.
On that note, we bid everyone an adieu. Enjoy the Wednesday. We will talk on Friday. Mandy from MLB.com. It's not a Mandy Monday, but we will have Mandy Bell on Friday to talk about the absolute mess going on in Cleveland. We'll get the latest from her, and we'll also get a couple more guests. And by the way, maybe by Friday we'll know if we have high school football, because if we do, then we got to start talking football with some coaches.
I think that they're split right now, because you saw what Halstead tweeted. That wasn't someone that's going to cancel high school football.
Yeah, well, that's waiting on a decision like Governor DeWine
they're
is
so split right now.
Yeah,
it's like
crazy. All right, we'll talk about that on Friday. Hopefully we have a decision. Probably not. That'll do it for the Wednesday edition. Power Hour is